Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 116. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whelan, Dr. Norge on the CGS forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. The toughest thing about spying on a Raging Bulleteer is his heightened sense of smell. So the rule is that it takes one to spy on one. I smell enough like a Bulleteer to pass like one. So says the sensei of the Whatnot Segulin and master of the spicy odor of the Order of the Bulleteers.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, Jim and I, with going back to weekly, one of the things we've noticed, we've been doing the past couple of episodes, a mad scramble to try and get the show in by Sunday so I can edit it together and get it out Sunday night. The problem with that is it's made for some very, very long days on Sunday with sometimes 3 to 4 hour recordings, and then afterwards another good at least 3 to 4 hours of editing the show together and putting it out and uploading it and everything and getting it out so it's on time. So we decided this week, like, if we could do an episode, a fun episode, and this is actually a type of episode type I'd like to do either monthly or at least bi-monthly. Very similar to when we went back and we originally did 1 year later. What we did is Jim and I each picked 2 titles. And we picked a single issue from the title that is currently in release, meaning the stuff that came out this month, to chat about. And there were a couple books that we wanted to spotlight. And this is kind of a fun way, with all the event-driven things and the big titles that are around in the DC Universe, a chance for us to talk about some books that you and I have not had a chance to talk about in a while. So I picked Rann Thanagar #1, Holy War #1, obviously because of
Wow, what a surprise.
Yeah, I know, big shock, Hawkman book and all that stuff. Starlin, I've been geeking out about the cosmic stuff like Death of the New Gods and Countdown to Adventure and all that stuff, so this is an area that I really am interested in. And I also wanted to, Steve Gerber passed away recently, and because of that, I wanted to talk about Countdown to Mystery. We've talked about this book very casually in our Countdown discussions, but it has an interesting reinterpretation of Dr. Fate, and it's a book that I think people are going to be very sad that they missed if they haven't had an opportunity. So I picked that one. Jim, what are the 2 titles that you picked?
Well, I went with a Vertigo title, Vinyl Underground.
And we're going to be talking about issue number 8, right?
Number 8, yes.
And Checkmate number 25.
Thank you. I couldn't remember which.
It was so funny. You're like paging through your notes to tell us what you picked.
I couldn't remember which Checkmate number it was.
I'm kidding you. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. We are continuing to support the Hero Initiative, and I want to shout out a couple of our listeners. We actually just got 2 more shirt donations, so it's another $20 towards the Hero Initiative. So thank you very much for doing that. As far as the T-shirts that Joseph created, there's only medium and large left at this point. We've completely sold out of extra large. So if you're looking for a medium or a large shirt, we still have them. If you want to give them away to, especially for kids and things like that, they're good-looking shirts, and they're fun, and you get it free for donating $10 to the Hero Initiative. That's the way I'm looking at this. These are free shirts that are being given out for donating to the Hero Initiative. So if you want a shirt, you want to donate $10 to the Hero Initiative, please do so.
Yeah, and they're good shirts. They're durable. They're comfortable. I'm wearing mine right now.
The Hero Initiative gives financial support for the essentials of life and an avenue back into paying work for creators basically who don't have that financial safety net. For more information on Hero Initiative, visit www.heroinitiative.org and call 310-909-7809. And there's a handy-dandy PayPal link on RagingBullets.com. If you just want to donate, if you want to donate a few bucks over to the Hero Initiative, please go ahead and do so. I put that link up there just because I want to continue to support this. So our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Jim, I saw this really cool book that I actually got to go and check and make sure I placed my May order already. I think I missed this one, and I'm definitely going to get it. Storming Paradise, number 1 of 6, by Chuck Dixon with art by Butch Guice. It's in 1945, and Europe lies in ruins. The Nazi war machines defeated. As the United States looks east to the last remaining Axis power and the final push in a long war, a miscalculation in the Manhattan Project results in the annihilation of the team of scientists developing the American atomic bomb. America's only remaining option is Operation Olympus, the invasion of Japan. But the bloody island-hopping campaign that brings American forces to Japan's doorstep won't prepare the GIs for the horror they will face as women, children, and the few surviving Japanese soldiers begin the grim preparation for repulsion. This brutal, revisionist look at the Second World War could only be handled by master storytellers Chuck Dixon and Butch Guice. Every angle of this conflict will be touched upon, from the infantry storming straight on through, so I saw that one. I'm like, oh, I better have pre-ordered that one. I don't know if I did, but I'm going to go back and send an email to those guys and just say, hey, can you please add this one if I missed it?
I know. If I I think I missed that one. I'm going to definitely throw that one in there. That sounds really neat.
Yeah, and that one, it's regularly $2.99. It's 50% off, only $149. So there's a special discount of 50% off on that one. Easy to jump on and try a title at half off.
Yeah.
Final Crisis Rogue's Revenge. Jeff Johns, art by Scott Collins. Number 1, there's a special discount. That one's $3.99 regularly. It's going to be 50% off, only $1.99 from DCBService.com. We're going to have the Rogue Piper, the Secret Society of the Supervillains. That it's basically kind of aftermaths of what happened with Bart Allen, and of course Salvation Run. So I'm interested in seeing these characters.
It's payback time.
Oh yeah,
big definitely
time.
Gonna.
So that's a for sure for me. Green Arrow Black Canary Wedding hardcover. It's the wedding album, and this one is 50% off. It's a $19.99 hardcover, only $9.99. You've heard us geek out so much on the show about how much we've been enjoying the new Green Arrow series with Black Canary, and these are the issues of the wedding special that was the lead into the series, and the first 5 issues of Green Arrow Black Canary. This book, if you were not a fan of the previous Green Arrow series, I would recommend this book for fans of Birds of Prey. I would recommend this book for fans of Green Arrow, because both characters deserve equal billing on this book. They're 2 wonderful characters. To get the first 5 issues and that special in a nice, handy-dandy hardcover, if you haven't grabbed the book, this is the way to do it. $9.99 is...
Dude, that's a great price.
Because it's basically 7 issues, because that wedding special, wasn't that double-sized?
That was a double-sized, yeah.
Yeah. So you're getting, for that price, you can't beat that in a hardcover. Jim, our in-stock trades book of the month, which is going to be, it looks like now we just did a wonderful recording with Kendra from the Emerald City Comic Con. So it looks like next week's show is going to be a kind of a convention wrap-up for us. It's going to be the Emerald City Comic Con discussion with the DC news coming out of the DC Nation from there, our reactions to it. So kind of expanding upon what they announced and talking about what we're excited about and what we think some of those announcements mean. Talking about that convention in general for people who haven't been at that one. This is the first time a DC Nation panel has ever been held at the Emerald City Comic Con. So it's a big deal to talk about that panel and what came out of it. So we're going to chat about that. We have a nice discussion with her about all ages books and materials such as the Johnny DC line, what we hope from that, and basically what we think is needed for the future to bring new readers into the DC universe. So it was a fun discussion on that one. We have listeners from the New York Comic Con we're going to get on there. You and I, depending on the time that's left there, we'll do some emails, listener rants. So it's going to be kind of a fun little convention season wrap-up episode for us next week. After that, immediately following, is going to be the Legion of Superheroes special, which we're recording this week with Matt Kramer, Darth Kramer from the forums. And Final Crisis, I think we're going to get on that episode.
Yeah, probably.
Time-wise.
Yeah.
I think we're going to put that on there as well. After that, we're going to be doing our Starman Wicked Inclination, as well as other material. We've got a whole bunch of stuff planned that we want to get to. You know what? For the episode with Kendra next week, do we want to also put on there, let's talk about the Action Comics Annual.
Ooh, that should be a good one, yeah.
You mentioned
I want to talk about that
Last Sun, the last part of Last Sun. Why don't we get our reactions to that? Very controversial because of obviously the amount of time since the release, but let's talk about the actual issue. Did we enjoy it? How did we feel after all this time reading the end of this series? Let's talk about that one. So why don't we do that? That'll be a part of next week's episode as well. So the Action Comics Annual, Emerald City Comic Con wrap-up, some more stuff from New York and things like that will be on next week's show. I got off a little tangent on that with our ad here. Back to our ad anyway. Legion of the Superheroes, which is going to... I love getting tangents in our advertisements. Legion of Superheroes, like I mentioned, is not going to be next week. It's going to be the week after. We are going to be doing our in-stock trades book of the month, which is going to be Legion of the Superheroes, An Eye for an Eye, which is the first 6 issues from the 1984 series. If you haven't grabbed this one, the in-stock trades price is $11.33. That's down from the original $17.99 cover price. You can't beat that. Also, we are announcing our June book of the month. That book is going to be Seven Soldiers Volume 2. We're also going to complete our discussion of Volume 1 on that episode. Jim and I, ages ago, started talking about Seven Soldiers, and we got, with a whole bunch of material that we had on the show, we got sidetracked from that discussion and have not had a chance to revisit it. As we learned more and more details about Final Crisis, we found out that events from Seven Soldiers are in some ways going to inspire and be a part of Final Crisis. And they said at the DC Nation panels, you don't have to have read Seven Soldiers to understand Final Crisis, but there is a mythos from Seven Soldiers that is going to play into Final Crisis. So because of that, we figured this is a good time to go back and revisit it. We're going to make this a bi-monthly in-stock trades feature. So what we're going to do is we are going to, in June, do Seven Soldiers Volume 2. Then in August, our book's going to be Volume 3. And then October, it's going to be Volume 4. So, and I have plans for the other months, which we'll be announcing gradually as we come along, including our September one, which is going to tie in our upcoming contest. So, more details will be forthcoming on that. But that's Seven Soldiers of Victory Volume 2, which is regularly $14.99. At the 37% off discount, it's only $9.44. So if you don't own Seven Soldiers Volume 2 and you want to join us for that discussion, that's going to be our June In-Stock Trades book. So
yeah, under $10.
Yeah.
Under $10.
Yeah. So our May one was, of course, Legion of Superheroes, and that's going to be our June one. And then I have a special one that's spinning out of the forum. There was a request in the forum for the one we're doing in July. Let's just announce it.
Now, let's tease them. Let's tease them.
No.
Yeah, come on, let's tease it.
No.
Okay.
All right, we'll tease it if you want to. You sure you want to tease it? It's not much of a tease.
I know. So that's why I'm just hyping
Tease
it
would
up
be
even
like
more.
you would leave like a clue.
Right. Well, let me think of a clue.
Okay. Uncle Sam's in it.
Well, that's a slight clue there.
I'm thinking Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters. Because we talked about the Infinite Crisis Aftermath, the Battle for Bloodhaven, but we haven't talked about Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters. I'm a big fan of Gray and Palmiotti. I don't want to tease this one. I want people to know they can go ahead and grab it from InStockTrades.com because that's going to be our July one. D. Goodhart over in the forum just mentioned that I'd love to hear you guys talk about some of these minis, and he's right. We haven't had a chance to really talk about that, and I love Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters, and I'm looking for an opportunity to talk about why. And I know you're a fan of that book as well, so that's going to be our July one. So the next couple months, for those of you, the reason why I think it's important to kind of announce some of the upcoming books is there's a deal at InStockTrades.com. If you order $50, it's free shipping. So I figure for people who want to participate in all these, you can grab the Legion one, the Seven Soldiers one, you can grab the Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters one, wrap them up in a nice, tidy little package, and get $50 worth of trades, and you save on shipping. So
booyah! There you go.
Yeah, everything's discounted, and you save on shipping. So I figure, if you guys want to participate in all these, here's what our upcoming plans are for right now. Go ahead and grab all those in one tidy little package and save some cash on the shipping. That's why I thought let's not tease it. Let's just throw it out there. Here's what we're doing. And go ahead and order them. So thank you again for your sponsorship, InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com. Remind everyone that whatever your shipping preferences, whatever your bag and boarding preferences, DCBS accommodates your collecting needs. Speaking of thanks, I want to thank everyone for supporting us with Podcast Alley, Popcorn, and iTunes reviews. Anything you do to let people know about us is tremendously helpful. Visit RagingBullets.com to check out show news updates, listener-generated content, DC release dates, which I update weekly, and much, much more. We add items to the site each week, and I want to thank listeners for the various parodies, such as Funny Bullets, Where's What Not Now. If there's something you'd like to have published on the site, have an email audio comment for the show, send them to ragingbullets@gmail.com. We love having you as part of the show. Jim, what's Top Bullets? Because that's our monthly feature.
It allows the listener, to get a little bit more involved into the show. You send in your top 5 picks of comics for the month. Maybe a little something about why you're digging it, or maybe if you just want to say, these are my top 5, boom, bam, 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 bam. I will contabulate the results. Sean and I will then discuss yours as well as give our top 5s as well. And it's a nice, great way to open, dialogue on what's out there, what's going on, what you're reading, what you're passionate about.
Very cool.
And you send those to senseiofwhatnot@gmail.com.
And that's your email address in general for the show. So
yeah.
If people have, because I know you've been getting some emails and comments and things like that from people. If you want to contact Jim direct, senseiofwhatnot@gmail.com is the way to contact Jim direct. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in depth in a plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Just a quick little addendum. Jim had a solo interview that he did at the New York Comic Con with Upper Deck, and I wanted to make sure to put it on this episode. It revolves around World of Warcraft, which, of course, the World of Warcraft comic is currently being published by DC, so we thought there was a connection there. So that is later on in the episode. You'll find that in the show notes as well, so definitely check that out. It's Jim's first solo interview. There's a fun little section on the site called Damn It, Norge. It's on the forum. All of a sudden, Ziggo and a few of the other listeners started jumping in and starting up a thread. Different things they were blaming me for that were going on in comics today and in the past. And this extends to Smallville and all kinds of other things. So it's a funny little section on the forum. Please feel free to join in. I'm going to respond to each of the individual things that people are complaining about. Jim, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and I'm going to take control of this one because I haven't talked about Hawkman. For as much as I geek out about Hawkman in this show, how often do I get to really talk about Hawkman on the show in storytelling? We're starting with Rann Thanagar Holy War #1. Our first review this episode is going to be of Rann Thanagar Holy War #1. Jim Starlin did the story, Ron Lim on the pencils, Rob Hunter inks, John Callis colors, letters by Pat Brousseau, Starlin, Hunter, and Jeremy Cox on the cover, Tom Palmer Jr. is the editor, And, okay, any book that opens up on Thanagar with great art and Carter Hall is a moment of true joy for me. What I really liked about this book is that it opens up exploring the religious and philosophical turmoil that is facing both Rann and Thanagar. And I really, all kidding aside, this is a very fun, very deep, very rich story that really is very intelligent. The depth that it's going into on cults and religion and personal beliefs and philosophical differences between races and cultures. And it's very contemporary to society in general today. And I'm really, really digging the heck out of this right out of the starting gate.
Oh yeah, the whole religion angle is just currently is a very topical discussion, but it's also just a great usage of these two cultures that have been at war for so long, but they both have this common goal. And this common enemy. This current problem with these, funky religions that are really starting to mess with them.
And two very different religions.
Two different types, but both extreme. And it's, whenever you're talking about a lasting peace between people, the first rule is you got to find a commonality. You got to find that common ground. We're maybe seeing this. Maybe this is the beginning of the end of the Rann-Thanagar War, is because the enemy of my enemy is my ally. So I don't know. It should be interesting.
I'm going to mention this multiple times throughout this episode, though. One of the things I really like about how they're doing these cosmic minis, and this one especially it stands out for, they're doing a great job of crafting a miniseries that feels like a continuation of the stories that we've been reading before, but it also offers a jumping on point for anybody. Like, this issue is really about laying out where the major players from the cosmic world are at today, where they're at right now. And they give enough of those background details that any of you out there maybe who haven't read any of these cosmic minis yet, haven't had an exposure to it, but you're kind of interested in this one, you can easily jump on this. You don't need to have read Mystery in Space or Rann-Thanagar War. Any of the stuff from the past you don't need to have read in order to be a part of this one. Countdown to Adventure. But if you read any of those, there's also some nice little nods back to those that involve people. And that's what's great about continuity. There's something there for people who've read everything before. There's something there for the new reader. It's easy to get involved in this right from the get-go. The opening inner dialogue. Carter Hall is spying on his former Thanagarian allies because they are wrong, and he's looking for peace between the two worlds. And that's really the gist. He believes they are wrong. The Church of the Eternal Light Corporation from Mystery in Space appears to be back and has a growing faith on Thanagar. Hawkman comes across this temple where he is searching for info, and I love that he is disgusted that they wouldn't just negotiate for the minerals they need for Rann instead of the raids, because basically from Rann, we had some diplomats out there, and they were talking about it. They could have gotten these things at a price. It was interesting, though, today when we're talking about gas prices, and we're talking about the fact that with the world turmoil, this is why we're paying more money. This is very contemporary. You can make a lot of connections between real-world issues throughout this series and real-world politics, and I love how that is put in but not forced.
Mm-hmm.
The Thanagarians turned from Animar Sin, but they are now in another cult. They are becoming unrecognizable to Carter. He feels alienated, and this will be the thread that connects him with Adam Strange, and I like that these are not just because of the fact that they've been allies in the past, but because they are facing a common threat, two very different threats on each of their worlds, but they both want the same thing. They have common goals, and it brings them together as allies because of it, and out of sheer respect of that. And it's interesting that both situations, while very similar, are also very different.
I did like the friendship. There's an obvious friendship between Adam and Carter that I kind of dig. That when Carter comes back to the Rann station and he's sitting there talking to Adam, talking about let's get some dinner. It's just like two buddies hanging out talking, and it was a cool connection between the two of them, because that's something you don't really see. Well, I haven't really seen that much of Carter Hall being a friend, being a pal, being, hey, bud, let's throw back a couple beers type of guy. And I've seen him as this very intense dude with a big mace who likes bashing in heads. This kind of showed the softer, friendlier side of Carter. It showed the Carter Hall, not just the Hawkman.
And that's what I really like about him. It's when you see him kind of lift up the mask, and when you get stories like this where they're able to delve into the character instead of just having him make an appearance, you get to kind of get at the root of what makes him such a cool character. And this is a great example of that in this story. And this is one of those where I was kept geeking out. I'm like, yes, because I didn't know how much Carter would be in here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was looking at this one, because so many characters are in here, but they do a great job of giving them all face time without diminishing anybody's role in this story, and I really liked that about this whole thing. When we were talking about in the beginning, the little bullets here rant I did at the beginning, that was actually Carter talking about the fact that because of the fact that he's had such close ties with the Thanagarians, because of the fact that through reincarnation, you know, there's Thanagarian in him, and there's, you know, all of that, because he's had so many different roles throughout the universe, he is able to blend in with the Thanagarians. So he is the perfect choice to spy on them because of the fact that they would notice somebody else because of their keen senses. Again, great way that he's explaining some of the powers that he has, some of the things that he's got that are a part of him through his link to the Thanagarians, while at the same time not giving, you know, basic Carter Hall origin. I like when they do it through storytelling like this. It's very cool. As we look at Rann, I like that we initially see Adam through Carter's eyes. The respect he feels for him and the overall goals is covert operations to initiate peace between two warring worlds. When Carter reports to Adam on Rann, there is a weird conversation with Sardath, who is the father-in-law of Adam Strange. The Lady Styx virus from Countdown to Adventure has been cured, but there are side effects that are causing their own religious issues. And you know, the story's heading towards an interesting commentary on the separation of church and state, fanatical religions driving wars based on beliefs versus politics. And that's, to me, I'm having a lot of fun just seeing all these different threads. I want to comment real quick, Jim, about the artwork by Ron Lim. It's spot on. He not only draws a mean Hawkman, but the whole unique nature of Rann and Thanagar are well represented. And this really isn't all about Hawkman. I mean, obviously, when your favorite character's in a book and you're geeking out about that, that's great. But it is everybody who's represented in this is very well drawn. There's a great focus on what makes them a cool character in the unique presentation of them by their powers, the way they react, personality comes through in the art. The difference between Comet and Adam Strange, even though both are very similar in their backgrounds, it's very clear that Comet carries himself in a very different way with a very different amount of maturity than Adam Strange, which is kind of surprising considering the age of Comet. And when we get more to talk about Comet later, we can talk about some of those changes. But the artwork for me particularly stood out as very pleasing art. Not just the characters, the backgrounds, the whole visual presentation, because this is an otherworldly story and you want to feel like you're really in those locations.
Yeah, and I got to completely agree on that one about just how when you're seeing Thanagar, when you're seeing Rann, you know they are two separate worlds. You know they're two separate entities, two separate environments. And, you know, just there's more talk about this like this with this whole religious angle. Because there's a lot of like arguments out there against religion. And, you know, one of them, a lot of people say, oh, it's a crutch for people. And the other one is, you know, if you have such blind faith in something, it takes very little to push that blind faith into a negative light. Now, you think about it. If you're sitting there saying that my church is always right, my people, the people who are the church leaders are always right, they are God's representatives on this earth, they can tell me no wrong, all it would take is for one of those people to say, hey, do this. Hey, they're always right. They have to be right. This is what I can do. And I like they're showing that usage of this, especially with that father-in-law. That's an intelligent man of science. He is, but he is so caught up in the Lady Styx religion that, you know, he had at one point in time even prays to her that she would enlighten, you know, Adam Strange and open his eyes to, you know, what is the truth that is out there about her. And he's like, she tried to kill you. She's evil. Your preaching is wrong. He's like, no, you're misguided. You're clouded. But his mindset is just so set on that blind faith that you can't tell anybody that they're wrong on it. It's not something that any logic is telling them. It's faith. It's in their heart, their soul that says this is the way it is. And I love that portrayal on both sides.
Absolutely. Well, I talked about alienation before. Carter was mentioning it in his inner dialogue as he was going over there. But then it fleshes over into we actually see that present with Adam Strange. Again, another connecting thread. This is Sardath. This is his father-in-law, a trusted ally, who now all of a sudden Adam can't trust. And that theme of alienation continues all the way through this book. I really like the way it's presented here because, somebody changes their religion around you, somebody changes their beliefs and they become a part of a cult, they're going to start becoming unrecognizable. They're going to be hard to trust. It's going to be hard to feel them out. And that it's an interesting commentary on how powerful belief is and whether it's right or wrong. How powerful a different belief system can be. It can change a family member. It can change a friendship. It can change everything. And it's really, I'm loving it. It's a very deep, deep story. And one, if you're missing, that you're going to want to pick up. Because my biggest worry on this one is it's going to get lost in the shuffle of all the things coming out.
Everything coming out right now, this could very easily get sidetracked. But it's a kick-ass story. I will give you full credit on that. It's, this is an awesome one. I'm
liking that the cosmic stories are contained minis. That they're being written this way with this intention, like let's end another one, we'll go to a new one. And they're stories, it's a continuing storyline, but they're great jumping on points at the beginning of any mini, where you can go, and then if you like this one, you can easily go back and trade and grab any of the ones that you liked before, but you don't need to understand this one. And I will say that, I really, really respected that about this issue. And they did it in such a way where if you've been reading all the cosmic minis, you don't feel like this issue is a waste of time. It's a very strong issue.
Yeah, it has actual issues and events going on, that it's not just a regurgitation of what happened. This is to bring you up to speed. No, it's a continuation, but it's not,
Within that storytelling, they do it, which is great. So there's something for everybody. Back on Earth, Comet is on the scene as a special advisor to the JLA. Although, in fairness, all he tells them is that no one plans to invade because no one has enough in confidence in Earth surviving its overpopulation, pollution, and destruction of natural resources, etc. And this really rang true to me. I mean, I'm as guilty as the next person of having things I really don't need. I could conserve more. I mean, I make efforts. I will say that. I do make efforts to do things like recycle and stuff like that. But I don't go wild with it. And in reality, we all probably should be taking a closer look at our planet, what we will do with it, and what the future will be like. So I'm not trying to get on my soapbox and say, like, I'm some kind of great person at this. But it was interesting to kind of see this through the story time. I'm like, okay, there's a lesson to be learned here. You have to ask yourself, what would we look like to an alien race? Would we come off as a joke? And I love the expressions from the League, from shock to almost sadness over the way he's presenting this. It's interesting that with the events and mystery in space, he is choosing to present himself as his own nephew to take some of the burden off himself. He actually died and was resurrected during Mystery in Space in a younger body. He's trying to keep a lower profile. And I love that he was paid by John Stewart to deliver such crappy news.
Yeah, you gotta love this guy.
This?
You gotta love this guy. He basically could have very easily, his big presentation could have been over a telephone call or however they communicate that way. But no, he goes in, I got my travel expenses. Oh, okay, thanks, And dude, man, this guy is awesome. He's the hero for hire. And he and Booster Gold need to team up. He and Booster need to team up. That'd be a cool team.
That'd be a good, that'd be a good Brave and the Bold issue.
Yeah.
It really would to see those two together. Over on Hardcore Station, Tyrone the dog rocks as the sidekick. This is kind of like the Mos Eisley spaceport of the DC Universe. Of course, with all the problems, it makes for a great spot for Comet to work and earn some money. Comet is all about himself these days. He, charged the JLA for info that is common knowledge. And when your dog gets on you for licking yourself too much, you know you are a little selfish. Because that's what he's doing. I mean, it's terrible. Okay, dude, all kidding aside. How do you charge Superman for anything? I mean, I know he went through Green Lantern, but seriously, if I was sitting there in the room with Superman, we talked about truth, justice, America, where the whole concept was Superman and all that stuff. It's Superman.
Yeah.
I could not, in good conscience, stand in front of Superman and go, I'm going to charge you to tell you basically people think you stink.
Yeah.
and that you're going to wipe yourselves out anyway. So there's no point in invading right now. We might as well just take over when you guys wipe yourselves out, which was the whole gist of the whole thing.
Yeah, how do you charge Soup for that? And then two, just the message that he told was just a great way to do it. Mm-hmm. I was just like, it never even dawned on me that people would look at Earth that way, but it's true. We're just self-destructive by nature. And
how reliant we are on natural resources and how we overuse them and things like that.
Yeah, it's The Matrix had the thing with where they described humanity as a parasite. Mm-hmm. Feeding on a host organization until it can no longer sustain life. That's what we are. We're going to use up all our natural resources. Will be nothing left for us, and we'll die off. Now, I'd like to think that maybe eventually we'll develop some science so we'll be able to leave this planet, go to some other planet, and destroy that planet, but you never know, that may not happen.
That's great.
What, you thought I was going to say science would save us? Come on. I'm a pessimist, you know that.
The pacing in this story is real nice. We get some nice fleshed out introduction to each person, like this segment with Max, the Chief Justice of Hardcore Station. He's searching out an old criminal for hire to nab him over the warrants on his head, and we get this mention of Sinar, who used to have control of the station, and it looks like he's going to be one bad dude in this story, is what I'm guessing out of this whole thing. There's this creepy alien with a bulletproof vest putting on the symbol of the Church of the Eternal Light Corporation, and there's this very ominous, a new day dawns. And this is a nice build at this point. I'm like, okay, what's this guy's deal? What's going on here? It's interesting that both religious cults have their own agendas and goals beyond just promoting the religion. Styx is about ruling everything, and the Eternal Light Corporation has similar goals, but with more focus on money and power. And either way, their goals conflict with each other and will put themselves in direct confrontation, thus keeping the war going between Rann and Thanagar. The situation on Rann is far worse than still believing in Styx. The people have started to try to talk to the dead, and the virus has really messed with their sanity. Yes, you can still have coherent conversations, and at times they seem perfectly normal. But once certain topics start, almost everyone is a bit off. And that's kind of the best way I can take a look at. There's it's kind of like you get to the point where you're like, well, okay, they're perfectly normal, well and fine. Then all of a sudden, woohoo, Twilight Zone.
They do that quick, sharp right turn, and you're like, where did this come from?
Right.
Okay. It's...
And where that worked for me so much, Adam is seeing this with his father-in-law. And to see that with family, where you can have coherent, sharp, intelligent conversations, then all of a sudden they veer off, it's like... it would pull at the heartstrings, and you keep looking for that hope that I can reach this person, and that we don't have to take steps beyond this. I can make people see what Lady Styx is doing. I can do this without having to take drastic steps.
Now, Rann was a very scientific-oriented
that was a religion
culture, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because that's even another huge jump, that they're leaving that logic and that science and all that for religion, which is a faith-based, which is you can't see what you're believing in, you can't study what you're believing in, you can't have the analytical, boom, A plus B equals C type logic to it. It's got to be, voomp, out there, and it's, dealing, like they had stuff where they're seeing ghosts, or they think they're seeing ghosts, they're talking to ghosts and stuff like that, just stuff that cannot be scientifically proven. And so for this culture to really go towards that is just another sign of something huge is going on in them.
When we see the temple devoted to Styx, and this was completed after the virus was gone by a society that prior to all that believed in science as the religion for them, they're still constructing temples to this creep. We once again have an issue of two reasonable representatives of each society trying to face two opposing cults. And it actually makes both Adam and Hawkman look very small in the light of the overwhelming odds that they're facing, and proves further why they got to go covert. This becomes interesting because people who give their lives and turn on family to basically to protect a cult, because that's what people will do. They'll actually give their lives. They'll give everything up and blow themselves up and things like this because of cults or religious beliefs and things like that. It adds the problem of who can and can't be trusted, and I like that development because these two heroes provide hope, but they also have a doomed quality to them because you have to wonder, with the virus gone, how do you get through to the Ranns and the Thanagarians? How do you get through to the Rann and Thanagarians who don't seem to be under any influence? If that makes sense.
Yeah, they're not being mindful.
The virus is gone.
They're not having mental control. If they're under control, then all I got to do is to separate that control. No, they are consciously making this effort. They are consciously choosing to do this. This is what they believe. This is what they think. It's
an after effect of the fact that they were under the virus.
Yeah.
But what happened was these were beliefs that they adopted afterwards. And there's some great commentary on the comfort belief systems provide. And it's so true. Most people take comfort in believing in a higher power. It leads to a sense of purpose. There's usually answers to a lot of questions about existence. Also, religion provides a sense of belonging. And these are things that you could see why people would be, joining. Hey, let's all join into the cult. And that's I can understand why that would happen. Adam has an idea to force feed everyone the truth about Stick, basically to expose the cult leader. And, do this basically through mentally, channeling that in. And there's a great sense of urgency here that really works for me. This cult needs to be stopped before it gets out of control. Carter barely survived on Amar's sin and offers that experience to Adam here at this stage, saying, we need to move. We need to move now. We can't sit back and let this get any further than it already is. Sardath is useless to Adam, and at this stage I question why Adam would even go to him. My concern would be that Sardath, knowing what Adam was up to, would cause him to, stand in Adam's way. And Hawkman has the right idea. Blend in, gain intel, use that intel to try and bring down the cult, because all bets are off.
Yeah, you can't trust the father-in-law. You can't trust anybody that's in the cult. You have to infiltrate the cult. You have to identify the problem from within to take it out.
And you wind up dead if you trust the wrong person.
Right.
Because, they turn on you.
I see that happening. I see that so happening that Stardust is going to turn on them. It's got to happen.
And we've seen similar behavior for him in Countdown to Adventure. Now, granted, he was under the influence of the virus there. But what's going to happen now, there's definitely going to be people who they're going to have to butt heads with.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on a strange level, I love the Comet segments because he died pretty harshly in Mystery in Space. Yes, he is a hero, and I think we are all realizing that he's going to step up at some point. But he's naturally leery of getting involved with Adam, which obviously Adam's plan is to discredit Lady Styx using Captain Comet.
Yeah.
And hopefully Comet will force feed them hey, this is what she's really like. I'm not so sure if I would get involved with that either. Well, after what he's been through. I'm talking about after what he's been through.
Here's the thing. I like the fact that he's just rejecting Adam without even knowing what the plan is. He doesn't know that yet. He's like, Adam Strange has those suicidal mission tendencies. I'm not having nothing to do with that guy.
Right.
Anything with his name, no. No. And it just, Tyrone keeps throwing it out there. Hey, he called again. No. Don't you want to hear what he says? No. I don't want anything to do with him.
Just to the hand.
Yep. Yeah. Leave me alone.
Tyrone is the voice of reason, saying that even though this job has more risk, there is more pay, and they could certainly use that. They are used to a better lifestyle. It's interesting to see that the reincarnated Comet has adopted a more youthful quality that matches his new body. It's interesting to see what it will take to get the hero to step forward again. And I think we're going to start. We
see that at the end.
But it was interesting as this journey was going on. What is it going to take to get him to step up? Starman fans, Prince Gavin from Throne World is a player in this drama. The Imperial Guards have been attacked by none other than Bizarro. It was funny, back when I saw he was on the cover, I was wondering, how would this guy fit into this story? I really like the premise that he is lost. Well, actually, me am found, because it's the opposite. But Gavin uses Bizarro speak to go into diplomacy mode, realizing that he doesn't want to go toe-to-toe with a Superman clone. I liked that. It was brilliant writing.
I tell you, when I first read this part, I saw a Starman. I'm like, who is this guy? I had no idea. Then I see Bizarro. I'm like, oh, he's a red shirt. Nice knowing you, dude. I was so convinced this dude was toast. And then he starts going into diplomacy mode.
He's got a pretty rich history, too.
I'm like, wow, this guy is pretty neat. I like this. He's actually talking out with Bizarro, and I was like, damn, this is a cool guy. I was glad to see he didn't get his head crushed.
And you're usually a big fan of that.
Yeah, usually I am.
You like to see the red shirts get it.
Yeah.
In this case, though, I'm glad to see that you got to get a better picture of who Prince Gavin is and what he's all about, because you don't have any history with him.
Yeah.
And that's very cool that came across in this. And that's one of the nice things about the writing in this. Realizing Bizarro is probably hungry, well, full in Bizarro's case, and frustrated over being lost, well, found, he uses that as a way to reach the dim-witted powerhouse. And that was the whole dialogue, talking in Bizarro speak was really funny.
What you hate to eat. Meat. I'm like, okay.
We get an appearance by Tigor of the Omega Men. And I like that he is a good guy, but isn't afraid to get a little seedy for the good of a cause. He is raising money using illegal mining practices to cause a revolution. He's kind of like the Robin Hood of the story. And I like that.
Yeah, he's another one in that I wasn't completely sure I knew who he was, but I read him like, oh, okay, should be interesting, and I had enough faith in the writing staff that I'm going to learn more about this guy as the story goes on.
Did you read the Omega Men miniseries way back when?
No.
Okay, it was out when we were doing the show.
Yeah, I don't. If I read it, I don't remember.
I'll give it to you. It's a pretty good miniseries. The issue closes out with Adam realizing he needs people he can trust in a crisis. The band is back together as he checks in on Corey and Buddy. He first of all needs to see if Corey has having any side effects from sticks, and then he needs them for better mental pictures of sticks for the telepath that he's going to use to kind of force feed the info. I am guessing this story takes place before the Winnick Titans because of Corey being still with Robin's Titans team and all that, placement-wise.
That's how I took it.
The handling of Kid Devil, Miss Martian, and Robin are spot on. We should get one of those, Miss Martian's reference to the Zeta Beam. Robin points out that they won't give up top-secret defense tech like that. Can't we just steal one? No. It was it was nice, interesting Titans banter.
And I actually was kind of curious about that because of some of the stuff we know later about Ms. Martian from Teen Titans. I'm like, I wonder if that's what they're implying or if it's just a little... Because on one hand, part of me wished that was Rose who said that. I would have rather seen Rose say that. But then I'm like, I wonder if they're referencing this other stuff from Titans, if that's why they're mentioning...
And that's kind of why I looked at it that way.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess reading what I'm reading right now, that's why it was interesting. Comet's history with the church comes back to haunt him. While he and Tyrone continue to debate the need for cash, the priest targets him again with a suicide bomber, the alien from the beginning, and an explosion hits. Okay, this is going to be good. Comet is going to be pissed on a major level. Did he die again? I'm not sure. Because the last time he had the run-in with the Weird, that's what brought him back to life. But what will happen here, and my personal guess is that his powers will protect him. You know, you'll see that little man being pushed away from the blast. I don't know if you saw that in the artwork. Mm-hmm. Although he may be dead again. I don't know.
I kind of took it as a teleportation away because he's got that teleportation power.
Okay.
Because you notice at the last second he sees the Church of Enlightened Religion symbol on the guy's chest and he knows something bad's happening.
Cool.
So
I'm guessing powers.
That's what I'm guessing how he got out of it. But you gotta love just the classic story plot to bring the hero back into the fight. You try to kill him, and as I'm just going, this is cool. Yes, I like this. This is, a fun, neat, just a way to, it's a classic, so you can't say it's overused, but it was just a great ending, too. Just that boom, explosion. Mm-hmm. Plus, we're talking about an extreme religion. Naturally, we need to have the suicide bombers.
Absolutely.
Because that is one of the most highest levels of extreme religious actions is to, blow yourself up for the good of the faith. So I was like, yes, we have it all there.
How cool is that? I can't wait until issue 2. If you haven't picked up a Cosmic Mini yet, don't feel like you need the tons of background like I mentioned. Starlin did a great job of filling in the necessary bits here for new readers. And I like that you, Prince Gavin was great for you because you didn't know who the character was, but it kind of brought you up to speed, at least on where he's at and why he's cool in his placement in this particular book. So I was glad to see that you were able to share that with it. But it's a mini-series I cannot recommend enough for just sheer quality alone. So good stuff, and this was fun. I'm glad we did this kind of episode, and like I said, I want to at least do this type of thing bi-monthly because I think there's a certain point to being able to touch on certain elements of the DC universe that we can't normally get to on the show, or even Vertigo, Wildstorm, things like that, like we're going to do in our next segment. And we're going on to Vinyl Underground next. So
you filthy criminals.
Jim, I want to put a little disclaimer on this one. We are talking about a Vertigo title called Vinyl Underground. And like any Vertigo title, it's suggested for mature readers, and you certainly need to heed that warning for this particular book.
Yeah, especially if you're playing this out loud right now and there are little children handy, you may want to pause this, come back a little bit later when they're not in the room, or because we're going to try to keep it clean. I'm not going to go into too much heavy graphic details, but it's going to be kind of tough.
Yeah, and there's going to be there's certain things that happen in this issue that there's certain things that we can't help but talk about that happened within the issue because it has to do with discussing the characters and their relationships and the interpersonal relationships of the main characters. I don't know how we can avoid
I know. There's
going into some areas that might be questionable for kids. So definitely check out the timestamps for this if you usually listen to it with your children. And for this particular segment, you're going to want to maybe listen to it yourself first and decide...
Yeah,
with the age level of whoever you're listening to this with, if you want them to hear this particular segment. But go ahead, Jim. This is your baby.
Okay. Well, we're going with Vinyl Underground number 8. The writer is C. Spencer. Pencils by Simon
I think
Gain.
it's Cy Spencer.
Cy Spencer? It's S-I, so I didn't know if that's Cy or C. So either way.
I think it's, that's usually short for things like Simon and things like that. So I think it's Cy.
Oh, okay. Well, Cy Spencer. The pencils are Simon Gain. Inks are Ryan Kelly. Colors by Guy Majors. Letterer, Jared K. Fletcher. Cover, Sean Phillips. Assistant editor, Angela Rufino. And editor, Shelley Bond. Now, we're jumping onto this in the middle of a story arc, and actually, if you don't know anything about Vinyl Underground, let me just give you a little bit to kind of bring you up to speed. It takes place in London, so you got that nice little change in scenery, change in dialogue, change in just the interactions of people. But it's the team are a cult detective, kind of. Some people compare them to the Scooby-Doo, which I personally dislike that because it kind of trivializes the story being told, which is some really sharp detective work. And as we said, it's a mature, sharp detective work, so a lot of their occult stuff will have sexual undertones with slave rings, with naked females splattered throughout the pictures, and various sexual connotations going on with the victims, with the team members, with the various people and whatnot. So it's... that's why I don't like calling it the Scooby-Doo.
If you're comparing this to Scooby-Doo,
that's
I want
why.
to know what Scooby-Doo you were watching.
Exactly. Well,
and what late night channel it was on.
Well, that's why anytime I've read a couple reviews on this, getting ready for this, and most of them said, well, it's kind of like a modern day twist of Scooby-Doo. I'm like, I wouldn't call it that. This is a detective piece. This is a...
and I'm a fan of Scooby-Doo, but it's Scooby-Doo is slapstick and a lot more. This is very. There's humor in this that's spread all the way through. This is definitely very mature. It's very intelligent. It sounds like I'm knocking Scooby-Doo, and it's
I know they're two different entities. They're completely two different entities. So
only thing that would be any comparison at all was the fact that Scooby-Doo went on mysteries, and these guys go on mysteries.
Right? Yeah. Leader, main character is Morrison Shepard, but for me, one of the things that I really dig about this is not just how cool of a character he is, because he is a really cool character, but it's his supporting cast. You have Perv, who is the wrongly convicted sex offender, who has this...
He could be Shaggy.
He could be... Okay.
Morrison would be Fred.
Yeah.
Morrison's former ex-girlfriend would be Daphne. And the other one would be a really hot Velma.
Yeah. Hey, depending on who you ask, Velma was kind of hot. So,
all right.
But Perv also has this freaky psychic connection, and he can speak to the dead and whatnot. And a lot of their tie-ins come from clues from Perv, which is once again it's a nice little add-on. And these past couple of issues, they've really delved into who Perv is and kind of like his interactions with people, because he does have a hard time associating with people. Even when they solve a crime, when they catch the bad guys and everybody else out celebrating, the damage still has been done to this guy because he's seen the horrific sides of this. He's seen as the crime was occurring, after the crime had occurred. He talked with the victims. There's some deep stuff going on with this guy that, I like that, and as the series goes on, we're gonna delve more into who this guy is and his role in the team and whatnot. We also have Leah, who is the well-educated, amazingly butt-kicking mortician tech. She is also just this super hottie who runs her own little porn site. And you gotta love that, just, this dramatic, twist of this character, that she's really hot, she's really smart, she knows how to kick some butt, and then there's the whole little twist where she's the porn star who doesn't go all the way.
But it isn't such a twist, because when you think about the nature of her character, she's the character who will do whatever needs to be done to get the job done. So the porn site thing for her is all about, I need money.
Yeah.
I need a decent amount of money. This is the way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, so it fits her character so well. And I like that she's the muscle of the team.
Yeah.
It's just a character that you wouldn't expect to be the muscle of the team, and that's really what she is. But that's oversimplifying her role on the team.
Yeah, and she's the muscle as well as one of the brains of the operation.
Right.
But, she's not the final detective piece.
She's a skeptic.
Yeah. It's a great interaction, and the last member of the team is Shepard's ex-girlfriend Kim, and I like how they picked her up. She got joined into during the first story arc when her father was basically accused of being murdering and all that. Her father was one of the main suspects, and not only was he a main suspect, he was just so blatantly guilty on the surface that there's no way anybody could have acquitted him. Well, the team finds the truth. The team found out that the father wasn't this, mass murderer type psychotic monster, but and so she joins back with the team. And I like the fact that she's entered into the mix, and now we have this weird kind of love triangle type thing going on with, there's obviously some charge between her and Shepard. There's some charge between Shepard and Leia. Now maybe even throw Perv in the mix. Maybe there's like a little charge or inclination going on between Kim and Perv. It's this really cool, this energy in the air.
Torchwood is a much better comparison to this, because Morrison would be Jack from Torchwood.
Bingo.
Because even when he's trying to bring Kim into the team, you could tell when the way she was brought in back in those early issues, you could tell that he all along wanted her on the team, but he was the one who kept saying she's not ready yet. And these are quirky characters that probably nobody else would put together, but every one of them is vital to the team, and they bring something that the other one can't to the team. So they're rounding out the team. So he's built a squad here. This is his squad.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that I really, really like about it. I could very well see, very similar to what we see in Torchwood, opportunities for people to maybe be fished out at some point for somebody else to come in and refill that role if necessary for the storytelling. Not saying that they're going to do that, but it's going to be. But I think Morrison's going to be one of those pieces to the puzzle that always has to be there.
Yeah. Now, the last issue, the team realized that they had this big, huge case, this slave ring, human trafficking ring, and they realized that the bad guys that they caught were doing this type of, were killing off bodies. They were bringing in slaves, and selling them off and whatnot, but they weren't the only ones doing it. And there's this another organization that's kind of, their bodies got mixed in with the other bodies. And they just realized at the end of the last issue, because once again, Perv had one of his visions and dealt with one of the victims, and the victim said, hey, you did a good thing, but not the right thing. There's more out there. And so this issue opens up with, they find another body from this other ring. And basically they're now launching their investigation into this other ring, which I love just how this flowed. Mm-hmm. You figured you had this great ending. They caught the bad guys, story done. No, it's not. There's still more. There's still one more ring out there that you have to deal with. And as they find this body, it is just a great reaction from everybody. Kim, who doesn't have as much dealings with these type of things, she's visibly freaked out about it. She's kind of puking a bit. Perv is like, hey, just let it out, just let it flow. Whereas Shepard and Leia are looking more analytically. They're looking more scientifically. They're trying to break things down. Okay, how did she die? Where did she die? Was she alive when they burned the body? No, her throat's been slit. So we know she was dead already when they started torching the body. Okay, so they're torching the body to cover up for the actions. Okay, and they're analyzing it. Some really sharp dialogue, some really great, detective type investigation moments in with this. Thrown in there's a little sexual innuendos, because like Perv is kind of comforting Kim, and Leah's like, there you go, wonder what's going on with her. And it's
but you also know that Leah has got a thing for Morrison.
Right. So
and that there's something, but she knows that he's still stuck on the X, so she holds that to a distance. Yet you feel like she wants to see her move on, so there's an opportunity for her to hopefully latch on to him. And I like that kind of love triangle. Mm-hmm. Or love square now at this point.
Love square, trapezoid, whatever you want to call it. It's
all bets are off.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to happen in this title, and I like that. It's
human.
It's very human, and also I talked about like this smart dialogue. I like the conversation between them as they're describing this stuff. It's not so lowbrow that you're like, okay, whatever. Yeah, sure, these guys are detectives, but it's not so highbrow that you're like, and what did they say? I'm a little confused here. So it's...
Well, and Morrison's the rich guy who has the money, and this, he got into this whole thing. It's more of it kind of started off as like a hobbyist kind of thing, but they've become like a group. They're kind of like what the Outsiders are in the DC universe, in the sense that they're kind of doing things that the police can't touch. The police can't handle. They're going places and questioning people and finding information in the ways that are very illegal, but then providing this information to the police to help the cases get solved correctly and properly. So they really are doing the right thing and helping out in the right way, but Torchwood is really a good, I think.
Yeah, Torchwood's a wonderful comparison to this,
I want to say one other thing. This was the start of the arc, the marriage of Heaven and Hell, part one. Heaven and Hell, the marriage of Heaven and Hell. It's part one. It's issue number 8 of the series. I can't recommend enough. Like, if you haven't read this, to pick up maybe the initial trade and read the whole thing from the beginning. But if you're somebody who's like, I hate trying a book out in a trade because I don't want to put that kind of financial investment in, I will say that issue 8 you could pick up, and it's the start of a new arc. You can kind of get a feel for what's going on with the series, get a feel for the players, and see if this is the right book for you. So I wouldn't let the fact that we were talking before how it's in the middle it's the middle of a larger overarching storyline that's been going on since the beginning of the series,
right,
and slowly developed to this point. But this is the beginning of a new arc. So for somebody who wants to just try out a single issue, issue 8 is part 1 of this 2-part story, and you can read 8 and 9 and kind of see if this is a book for you, and then maybe go back and get the first 7 issues. I would recommend doing that afterwards, though. There's a lot of great character development in the earlier issues that are well worth reading. This is a fun series. I'm monthly on this book. I was going to get this via trade, and this is a great example of another book that now all of a sudden has converted me back to on Vertigo titles. And it was funny. All it takes is a couple of Vertigo titles to make me rethink getting Vertigo titles in the trade. And this is one of those books where I'm like, I can't keep waiting for these books when they come out in the trade. I want to read them monthly as they're released. And I want to have the option to stockpile 2 or 3 in my own way and just kind of grab them and read them as I'm ready to, instead of waiting for them to be bound and published.
This is one that I'm still getting monthly, and I kept telling myself, okay, after the first arc, I'm like, after this next arc, and it's like I was able to shift over to DMZ back to trade again, and that was tough for me. And this is one where I'm like, I don't see it happening, because it's, as I said, we had one arc end, the next arc begins, and they kind of merge into, and it looks like it's one full arc. And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, it's a fun read. This is one where it's not stockpiled. I've actually, it's not my first top of the read because it's not current DC continuity, but it does get read in that first round. Before the next issue comes out, I have this one read, and that's where I put it at.
This is up there for me as some of the best that Vertigo's publishing right now. It's up there with things like You're Scalped and Loveless and 100 Bullets and books like that I'm really enjoying. Why the Last Man, which ended, this came along at a great time because I'm losing Why and I've got this. And this is one of those books that is just up there. I'm going to keep following these characters, so I can't recommend it enough.
Okay. This takes us to the next group of bad guys, and this is, these are some freaks, big-time freaks, and I'm not talking freaks as in they look like monsters. They look like everybody else, but they have just a different, perspective on life. But the thing I like is, yes, they are freaky, yes, they are weird, yes, they are sexual deviants, but they are freaks with a mission. They have a purpose, they have something they're doing. We don't know exactly what they're doing. It's not just pure sexual gratification that they're doing. They're running some experiments on these girls. While they're torturing them, abusing them, murdering them, there's some underlining experimentation going on. We don't know what the experiment's purpose is, what the end results are, but it's just this great, mystery that is like, what is going on? Yes, we got some colorful characters who could very easily become over the top. Just, oh God, come on already. Yes, you're a freak. Okay, I get it. Go on. But they don't let it go that way. They continue the story with, kind of their own little weird perception of life and dealings with people.
It's funny, we were talking about cults, like when we were talking about Rann Thanagar and all that stuff, and this has that kind of feel as well, this group. Their reasoning for being together is they have a certain belief system. And yet, here's the problem with them. A lot of times, the threat when you're captured by somebody is death, and you're always worried about being killed. With these guys, it's like when they capture you, you hope they kill you quickly.
Yeah.
Because the alternative that they present is fate worse than death. And the things that they do to the people that they do capture are really downright creepy, deviant, and they make you question. You can say, well, geez, why would somebody want to die? This would be why. This would be the type of group that getting caught by them would make you question your survival instincts.
Yeah, this group would make me say, okay, kill me now.
Yeah.
Or look for a way to throw myself on some giant knife or something so I don't have to deal with them.
Yeah, and I'm a big guy, and like it would take a lot for me to say that because my sense of self-preservation is very high.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what we have their resident psycho pervert, and Steven, who he's looking into the slides, and it's whatever they're experimenting on, trying to figure out what it is. But he kind of sees them in a little bit different light. The boy's starting to have some delusions and visions and whatever you want to call it. And
you can say it. Dude's got fantasies of lesbian skeletons.
Okay, yeah, there you go. I'm trying to figure out a way to tell it, and
yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, and 2 lesbian skeletons, psycho pervert. What do you think he's doing? I'm just going to leave that part out there because as he's getting started to do what you're thinking he's doing, in walks Dr. Helen Babworth.
He's contabulating.
And you know how weird.
You know what I love right now? We've got ice cream music in the background.
As we're talking
about lesbian skeletons and this guy contabulating, and we've got the ice cream man's out there.
Now I can never use that word. I now have to come up with something else because the second I say I'm contabulating,
cha-ching.
The second I say I'm contabulating, it will enter those visions in my head. Thanks. But okay, seriously, we have Dr. Helen Babworth come in, and she's the scientist. She's the brains behind this operation. She's the one who's running these researches, and she catches him contabulating, and I like how she immediately gets suspicious of him. She starts thinking, okay, what's going on here? She's not just the psycho freak that she comes across in this group. This is an educated person. So naturally she's going to look into it. She's going to start, dealing with, okay, what are you doing, Stephen? What's going on here? It's like, oh, well, it's interesting. No, this isn't interesting files. These are normal slides. What are you talking? And she's studying him, analyzing him. Are you starting to have a reaction to your medicine? And just kind of making sure that nothing goes wrong with the system. Nothing goes wrong with their operation.
The larger plan.
I love that. Yeah. I love that, especially given the ending of this issue. I love just her mindset, where she's going with this.
I like the artwork in all of this because it's very consistent all the way through. Characterizations, the way that they're drawn. People look noticeably creepy that need to be noticeably creepy. And the people that are supposed to look sexy, like even her, you're talking about her. She's got, at times, sort of I don't want to, like an evil, sexy quality about her, but then there's other times where she looks downright, like, gross and evil.
Yeah.
And it's a tone shift dependent on the situation.
And what she's doing, how she's doing it, it's...
And you know that she's a threat, a very, very real threat.
Yeah, of course.
Speaking of cults.
Speaking of cults, yes, and freaky leaders and... I don't know what you want to call him, but Professor Marshall shows up, and he's the self-proclaimed prophet as well as the financial backer for whatever these experiments are that she's doing. So
he looks like a dime store Santa Claus gone horribly wrong.
Yeah. Well, just if you don't have the issue in front of you, let's explain. He's completely naked except for a lab coat on. Now, granted, thank you to the art team for not showing us any graphic details on this guy. Really appreciate that. Did not want to see that, so I'm glad they didn't go there. But she does mention to him,
ho, ho.
She does mention to him, you can't walk around like that. We got to have a little bit more decor here in the lab. And once again, he basically, in a way, dismisses her.
Well, not only that, he's a professor of English literature. What is he doing in this biological access facility? So they're saying, you've got to watch here right now. We're trying to keep as low key as possible, which, she's clearly the one trying to keep the reins pulled in on this psycho situation. Saying, hey, we got to keep the operation going and all that. And we can't do that if you're walking around doing all this kind of stuff, especially with your role in the university. You're a professor. What are you doing here? Why are you down here with this? And in the meantime, she's trying to hold together the other freak. And you need someone like this when you're going to have these kind of bad guy deviants running around. You need someone that needs to show us, why haven't they been caught yet?
Yeah, and she's the reason they haven't been caught yet. And the thing that gets me is I really, by the end of this issue, saw that she's just using both of those two for her own purposes. The professor is the money man. The psycho is the muscle who he takes care of all the ugly details. He gets rid of the bodies. He finds new bodies as they need them. But it's really her operation. The others are just ends justify the means. Yeah, we'll keep them around, keep whatever I have to do just so I can keep my operation going, keep my experiment going. And I really want to know what her experiment is.
And I also would not be surprised if they don't 100% know what she's really up to.
Oh,
I'm not saying that that's the case, but I wouldn't be shocked to find out like she's got some agenda that goes beyond even what she's been telling them. That may not be the case, but she's one of those types of characters where you're like, she's 2 steps ahead of them. Needs to be.
I would honestly be surprised if she isn't doing that to them, if she is telling them everything. I don't think she is. I think she's told them one thing that will keep them going. Whatever she's had to tell him to keep it going, that's what she's told him. The truth is something completely else out there. I don't know what it is.
It's such a cool series.
I know. So after we go from the freaky team, we go back to the good guys. We go back to the main team, and they're laying out all the pieces of the puzzle. They're trying to come up with their plan. It's not just a shoot from the hip, let's see what happens. No, it's an analytical approach. They're like, okay, we got to know what we're doing. They play off of everybody's strengths. So like, Perv, you hit the internet, go through your pedophiles, see which ones maybe has a violent tendency. Leah, you go infiltrate one of the recruiters' workplaces. See what you can find up. See what you can dig up. You send your muscle to do the hard-hitting work. Great usage of her, especially, considering the last victim was a female. She'll blend right in with that. I was digging it. And then last, you had Kim. One of the recurring themes that have been going on have been references or connections to William Blake. Whether it's where the body was dumped or whether it's where the victim lived, there's some type of reference to William Blake. So Kim was sent to recruit a literature professor or some type of expert on Blake.
What's great about this evidence wall here, too, that you're talking about, for a new reader who, if you've just jumped on with issue 8, this evidence wall is a great way for you to kind of take a look at what they've found so far in the storytelling. Kind of lays out, here's the evidence we've gathered in the previous issues. Which is nice. It's nice that it has an ongoing feel. Yes, these are separate arcs, but the events from the previous arcs play heavily into what's going on right now. So this is a good point for new readers to kind of get a quick little look at, here's what we've done. And that's great. I like it. It's interesting. Good writers know how to do this. They're like the old balloons that would give you quick little
and it's
updates.
And as we're talking also, just like the detail on Shepard's face, I really like that. There's a lot of times in this artwork where you're just sitting there and you're looking, you're like, wow, that's some just a nice facial expression, nice just look at that person. And I was just like, especially on that one, because as he's in charge, he's the leader of the group. He's like, okay, take care of this, take care of this. You see that leader in him. You don't see the playboy, who was the guy who threw up in the hot tub on Big Brother, I think was what he ended up, was his big claim to fame or something like that. You don't see that. You see the detective. You see the leader of the group. You see the man who's organizing all this. And I like those moments when you see that and you see the different, the behind the scenes of the different characters. The artwork is definitely a spot on, just really cool looking book. I'm really digging that about this title.
And I agree. One thing I like about his background, very similar to what we were talking about Jack Harkness from Torchwood. Jack Harkness, the deal is, that he's been living, because of events in Doctor Who, he's like basically become an immortal at this stage, who's been like living forever throughout history, and we get to see flashbacks every so often in Torchwood to his history and where, he came from and all those backups. With him, it's different. He grew up, he was a rich playboy kind of character, and he's got that kind of nasty history that often makes people not have so much respect for him because of that. But that actually plays into his relationship with his ex-girlfriend as well, and I like it. These are characters that have flaws, but sometimes their flaws are what make them a strength to the team.
Yeah. Okay, so as the team goes out on there are different individual assignments, we get Shepard, and he meets with, I kind of compare it to this versions of Commissioner Gordon. Sergeant Caulfield, and these two have had this great development, because as Shepard's team solves a crime, they leave they leave a little vinyl album there. They give her the evidence. She causes she makes the big bust. She becomes the big hero. And at first she resented them for it, but now she's seeing that this guy is a tool. He is a usage for good, for truth, for justice. It's whatever you want to call it, or even just a way for her to advance her career. But he is definitely on the side of catching the bad guys. And in the past, she's told him, stay out of it, stay out of it. Well, this meeting, she called to order because she wanted to forward on more evidence and more information to him. And basically telling him that, hey, we caught that crime ring, that wasn't all of it. Even granted, Shepard already knew that, but the fact that she's reaching out to him and telling him, hey, there's more to this case than what we saw before. You want to keep looking into this. I thought that was just a great interaction and just a great kind of like beginning of a trust friendship type thing that is going to be developed further on in the issues in the series.
One of the things I like about this relationship, too, Commissioner Gordon is such a great comparison. Because in the sense, she has to turn a blind eye to some of his activities. Because they're vigilante activities. They're things that fall outside of, what the long arm of the law and how she can operate. And because of that, she has to actually step back and almost, I don't want to say condone, but say, oh, I know you did this, and let him know that she knows that he did this. But basically admit, and he even admits it to her, too, that he knows she needs him, and to a certain extent, he needs her.
That's also part of the whole thing, because he actually trusts her with something. Because he's like, hey, I'll do this for you, but you got to do me a favor as well. And he gives her this picture of this little girl, and it's a sub-story that's kind of going on, throughout the other issues, where there's this girl out there who may be his little sister. Right. He doesn't know, but he's pretty sure that that's the case, and he gives her this picture and tells her, hey, she may be my sister. I need you to help me find it. Now, he could have just said, hey, I need to find this girl, and not tell her the details why, but no, he trusted her enough to tell her this may be family. And I like that we're getting both of them on both sides, giving to each other and helping each other out. It's not just a one-way, exchange between the two of them. That was a really cool moment for me.
This is part of his quest. That was part of his quest to find his mom, which was some great issues as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
As the team's following their individual leads, we see really the strength of their characters, and just the individuals are just, it's the sum of the strength of the individuals make just a stronger team, and I really like that. We see, Leah is able to charm her way past the guards, kind of. She's got a little bit of a disguise, pretending to be a dead woman, but she still continues on. Mm-hmm. And, when she's discovered, however, by Dr. Babworth, that it's, okay, you're in trouble now, lady. Oh, really? Bam, bam, kicks complete crud out of the guard, out of the watchdog. She's like, oh no, I'd hate to be in trouble. And it's just...
And intimidated this woman who we were just talking about is the glue that's holding together this cult. Who's already, we've seen her show herself to be a very intimidating person. She's not used to being backed into a corner, and she was by her.
Yeah, and not only another great art scene where you see the look of fear on her face as there's this pretty big security guard and a dog down.
Surprise.
Yeah.
I took that as surprise too, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like, where did this come from? Because you don't see it with her, because you see this pretty face. You see this, hot little, brunette at the time, but she's really a blonde, and, who would have seen that coming? While this is also going on, we have Kim discussing William Blake with, of course, who else but that Professor Marshall. And once again, you see some quick reactions on her part. Because, as she's talking to him, as she's saying it, she notices something's not completely kosher there. There's some thumping going on up ahead, which is Stephen moving one of the dead bodies. But she also notices on the mirror some bloody fingerprints, and she's able to lift that off. So she's also reacting and keeping up with the story, keeping going on what's going on with the different team. She's not just there because... she's an ex, but she has something to add to it. And, of course, lastly, we have Perv, who is able to break down through the different pedophiles, like, some 300-plus type of people it could meet. Okay, breaking it down. Who has, the biology connection? Okay, from those people who have the biological connection, who has a violent tendency? And sure enough, he nails it right down to Steven. And they have the 3 different pieces of this team identified through their investigation. I was just like, wow, this is some cool stuff going on.
What I really like, too, is not while they're doing this, our favorite cult is doing the same thing.
Yes.
They're taking apart... They were just each in their own way, each one of them, was picked off by one of the three. They've got Callum, being analyzed, Kim being analyzed, and Leah. They're coming together, bringing their information, and realizing these aren't isolated incidents.
Yeah, and once again, keeping with the glue who keeps the bad guys together, it's Dr. Babworth, who knows that this wasn't just an isolated attack. This was an organized, structured assault on us. And they got into all of our inner sanctuaries. They know who we are. They've identified us. And I love the fact that she's looking and she's seeing the weaknesses. She's like, okay, we got to study what are our weak links. Where can they get us? Where can they take us down with? Now, we have the classic bad guy underestimating the heroes rant from Professor Marshall, who basically dismisses us. Oh, they can't find us. They don't have any evidence on us or anything like that. And at first, that kind of irked me. I was like, oh, come on, you got this sharp. But as the issue ends and we see exactly what's going on with the doctor, that I was like, oh, that's beautiful. Because, yes, you have the quote-unquote figurehead leader, the messiah, prophet, whatever the professor wants to call himself, saying we don't have to worry about it. The doctor is not just letting it go. She's analyzing their weaknesses, looking for what's going on. And while she's analyzing the weaknesses, once again, our heroes are. Because they're all laying out their evidence. They're all saying what we got. Hey, we got the bloody fingerprints over here at the professor. Hey, we got this facility is definitely hiding something. We have this pervert who, and they're arguing their different cases, their different points, saying, hey, but it's, Shepard who, as the leader, reels them all in. He's like, hey, no, we can't look at all of them. We go for the weak link. We target the one we can go after, the one we can bring down, and the one we can take out. And that is a classic approach with any type of investigation. You find the weak link on the team, you take him down. And in this case, it's Steven, the little resident freaky pervert.
Who's having his own sense of delusions at this point.
Yeah, big time. And he's having visions throughout this whole issue of seeing these women in bright white light coming to him. And as he's in the room with the other potential victims, all these women are, stripped down naked and chained up and, basically waiting for their time to be tortured and killed. Steven goes in there and he sees the vision of the woman coming to him and he's like, ah, kind of like, leading towards her.
I want to talk about the artwork, too, with the women. Because you're talking about normally, when you sit there and say, stripped down, naked. I like the fact that this is not portrayed in any way as sexy.
Yeah. Oh, not at all.
The women's faces, they're all distraught. They're disturbed. They've got mascara running. They're huddled close together. They're all the dire nature of the situation is very present here. There's nothing remotely sexy about this on any level. And I really, really like that with what's being presented here because it's creepy, it's deviant, it's scary, it's your worst nightmare come to life for anybody to be. It's violation of these people, and it's presented that way in the artwork, and that's important.
And also, it's like in a lot of those old slasher movies, you'd have the cheap flash of naked women's breasts. And you'd have that quick little sex scene right before Jason Ramsman kills them, with some spike or spear or whatever he's going to use. You don't have the cheap flash here either. They do show naked females. They show women's breasts constantly throughout this title, but it's not a cheap pop. It's part of the story. It's part of the understanding of it. And it's a flow within the story. That's why this is a very mature title. But it's not something that I would call over the top. It's not, the gratuitous, cheap, sex scene. So I like that about the usage of the naked form. I love that about that, especially when we're talking about the women huddled up. They're even kind of covering up the quote, the good stuff. They're covering that up just because naturally a woman would sit there. They would have that modesty.
It's their most vulnerable areas that they're protecting.
Yes, and I like that. And it's just a nice, cool portrayal of that. But, okay, let's get on back to Steven, as he's having his, what ends up being his final delusion, which...
And that's funny. The sexiest girl is the one in his delusion.
Yeah.
Because it's delusional. And I was totally okay with that because of the fact that she's delusional.
Yeah, and it would make sense. Plus, it's we say sexy, but she's also Yeah, she's got her throat slit. Right. There's blood pouring down her chest, so it's weird that we call it sexy, but it's supposed to be that. I know,
I'm talking about her facial, and all that.
And she's like kind of turned. Like she's into
submitting
it.
To him.
Yeah, right. She's into it. She wants it. Like, come on, come to me. And then as
it's a delusion.
Yes, and as he leans in for the kiss, it's kind of everything goes funky, freaky, and he's like yes, and then it flashes back to reality, and we see a noose around his neck as Dr. Bedworth is just strangling him. And I love that. I cheered out loud. I was like, yes, she recognized the same weakness that our heroes caught and said, I got to take out this weakness. I got to get rid of it. And the issue ends with him actually hanging from the Blackfriars bridge. And, in a quote-unquote suicide. And that's something that's also being portrayed that was very slightly hinted at throughout the issues. Different people that are coming across as being suicides, when in reality they weren't actual suicides. They were taken out probably by the doctor, and she made it look like a suicide so it covers up for it. And that's why I know there's no way she's telling these guys what's going on. Mm-hmm. She's probably going to tell the professor that the guy hung himself and killed himself. Oh, don't worry, the mission will continue, your prophecy will continue, we'll find a new stooge, or whatever she's going to tell the guy, I don't know. But it's that great just continuation of this villain who I can honestly see her kind of getting away with this. Sneaking off, maybe it's only the professor gets caught, but something just tells me she's not done yet. And even when this issue ends, I don't think she'll be done yet unless they really go over the top and take her out. I don't know. But that's the whole thing. I want to know what's going to happen next. I'm curious to see how she explains that the professor the guy's dead. Does she get away with it? What's her experiment? What is going on here? I want to know these details. And when I start thinking of what's going on, what's this, it gets me excited for a title and makes me want to read more. And that's why I recommend this wholeheartedly.
Great main characters, compelling main characters, and equally compelling villains.
Big time.
Wonderful storytelling. The side cast is wonderful as well. This is definitely well crafted to be an ongoing, and if you're missing this, it's definitely, people are always looking for that one, people talk about crossovers and looking for that one read that kind of fits into your stack. I like this type of read because I'm reading so many books that interconnect, and I've got to keep, in mind, like, where does this fit continuity-wise and all that. These are great because I can pick up this book, I can sometimes stockpile 3 or 4 issues of it, go back. It was funny for this episode. I had read up to issue 2, and you had said I wanted to do number 8. So I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead and read it. And it's a very deep read. There's a lot going on, a lot of dialogue, a lot of storytelling, a lot of drama. There's a lot of read here. You get a lot of bang for your buck. And it's really, to me, this is what Vertigo is. It's nice for me. Vertigo's a nice break from your superhero comics and things like that, which I enjoy immensely, obviously. But this is great. Go ahead.
And it's funny you're talking about dense. I read Vertigo, especially this title, different than I read DCU. Mm-hmm. With this one, I read a page and I read all the words, then I go back again and I reread that page again. This time, looking at the images as well as the words. Right. First time I read through, I literally just read the words, just so I know what happened. Then I can go back through, and it's more of because like with DCU, I'll read it through, then I'll reread it again, maybe a day or so later. This one, I'm reading each page at least twice, sometimes even 3 times when I'm noticing stuff, in one sitting.
Especially the William Blake connections that they make throughout this series. You really need to kind of read this one a couple of times to get your head around where those connections fall into place and things. It's a very smart read. I really like it. It's one that I'm glued to it. This is one I cannot go to trade on because I just want to keep following these characters' adventures. Torchwood's just a great comparison to the whole thing.
Definitely a great comparison. Yeah.
It's definitely Torchwood in itself is kind of the Doctor Who spinoff that's a little bit edgier, a little bit more mature, and this is like Torchwood unhinged. And it's probably the best way. It's not. I wouldn't say it's a Torchwood clone by any stretch, but it's like Torchwood unleashed, without any of the restrictions that you would have putting it on television. And I like it.
It's Torchwood on HBO.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that. All right, Jim, for our next one, we're going to have a nice casual conversation about Countdown to Mystery.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
For our next review, I wanted to talk about Countdown to Mystery. And I was looking back through my comics to see what I had from Steve Gerber. I had Howard the Duck, Defenders, Man-Thing, Void Indigo from Epic, which is, I'm going way back on that one. Some issues of Daredevil. I was a big fan of the Malibu Ultraverse, which I've mentioned on the show. Things like Sludge and Exiles were by him. There was Nevada from Vertigo. There was Hard Time from DC Focus. And I'm really not doing him justice. This is just kind of random works I was kind of going through that I enjoyed as I came across. This guy is a huge loss for comics fans. Steve Gerber is a very versatile writer who delivered some really unique stories. And I wanted to make sure while the series was still going on that we talked on some level about Countdown to Mystery, because back when they announced Dr. Fate as a series, I was really, really excited for that. And poor Steve went through his health issues, and that put a delay on that series. Then they came through and decided they wanted to relaunch it, and they did it this way with the anthology. And I was excited to finally see that concept seeing life. And I'm so glad that DC decided to do this, so we could at least see his vision on what he was going to do for the character. So when I was looking across for an issue to rant about this week, I jumped at Countdown to Mystery number 7. I was ranting about the series, as I mentioned, and I'm going to dabble a bit, though, between issue 6 and 7. So it's going to be kind of more loose and free-form, my discussion here, because if I try just speaking on issue 7, I'm not going to give enough picture of Kent, who I think is important here. So I want to chat briefly about issue 6. Kent Nelson has been working with the owner of an occult shop to get to the bottom of what is really going on with the Helmet of Fate. He's a recovering alcoholic. Kent is really down in his luck and far from hero material. Up till now, he has basically avoided calling on the Helmet, even went so far as to sell it at a pawn shop for money to live on. Along the way, he meets Inza, and it's a setup that he may be, have this destiny with her because of the past history. It's the wife of the ancestor who held the Helmet. So you kind of feel that. Nigel the demon has other ideas, as she is turned into scrubbing bubbles during a shower and is sent down the drain. And it's this creepy, black, goopy stuff that she's sent into. But, I mean, poor guy's, traumatized. She's this cute girl. She's a comic book writer. And there was this great story where you got to see who she was as a person through her comic creation. And I have a feeling had Steve Gerber had the opportunity to continue with this series, we would have seen her come back again in some capacity, because she was too well developed a character and for not to have done something with her. But issue 6, continues as, his journey. This is a wake-up call. Until now, he found little use for Maddie, who was the occult shop owner, and really has run hot and cold with the Helmet, and unless it served him for personal gain purposes, like making money in Vegas and things like that. So he learns about the rich history in issue 6 of the Golden Age JSA, and I liked that because there was a nod to those original issues of All-Star Comics. It has this kind of a greatest American hero vibe without it being so slapstick, because there's no instruction manual for the Helmet, and he's learning as he goes along. And he travels to a magical world and is faced with some nasty demons, and there's hats off to Justiano, who crafted some really creepy foes. Because a lot of times, cartoon demons, they have like this cartoony look to them, and they never really seem as menacing as they should be, because they're demons.
It's the with the TV show Buffy, sometimes the demons. I used to look at them, and they come across as being more like they belonged on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, not as a scary demon. And this definitely is crafting some nasty, evil creatures that, there was a lot of reference. It reminded me a lot of Spawn when that came out, and just how, you're just like, okay, yeah, I can see why that thing is nasty. I completely understand. That's a demon right there. That is a force of evil. You had that with this, and I really dig the that evil, nasty vibe that I was getting while I was reading the book.
That really wants to fear, and it sets the tone for why the magic side of the DC universe would need a powerhouse hero handling things. And why you would need a Dr. Fate. We learn that the Helmet is a calming agent, and that the costume and the helmet cover the body when in offensive-defensive mode. And we see that little shift as to why the Helmet takes on a more of a full face instead of just the half mask that we've seen in the past. I like that explanation of the whole thing. After a creepy encounter with Inza's scrubbing bubbles remains, various deceased versions of the JSA, demon manifestations at that point of those characters, a whole bunch of creepy demons in general, Kent escapes that world and can't wait to give up the Helmet. So he hands it over to Maddie in hopes that she will take it and his troubles will be over. I liked this concept. He isn't given superpowers and the glam and glory that we often see associated with superpowers. He is put through some creepy and horrifying stuff, and his reaction feels very real for a guy who's already had tons of personal demons, and now he's dumped this on him as well. That was basically where issue 6 took things for this character. And let's head into a general chat about issue 7, but I want to talk about the creative team. The plot in issue 7 was by Steve Gerber. The script for this particular issue was handled by Adam Beechin. The penciler is Justiano, the inker is Walden Wong, the letterer is Sal Cipriano, the colors are by Chris Chuckery, the assistant editor is Stephanie Buscema, and the editor is Joey Cavalieri. And, Maddie's taken, obviously, by the idea of the helmet. This is to her like, wow, this is like the Holy Grail. She is no longer studying magic. She now has magical power for herself. For her, this is the equivalent of getting a Green Lantern ring.
Yeah.
And how cool is it? And you see that. While she's enjoying her newfound power, Kent is glad to be free of it. Of course, as he goes to sleep, nothing is that simple, and a magical cocoon starts to wrap around him. And you start like, okay, what's going on here? Maddie's having this almost angelic experience with the magic. It is like something out of the never-ending story. At least until Yimp the Imp shows up and informs her that she is an amateur. Nigel has sent him to strip her of her psychic defenses, her sanity, her clothes, virtue, and helmet in that order.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he is, you think about an imp, the little tiny creature. Also, this is not, once again, very menacing design on the imp, adds to the terror of the situation, the dialogue, the overall look. This is creepiness personified. It's woo.
Yeah, and I like the fact that when Maddie put on the helmet, she sees, just these, and she's like, oh, this is so wonderful. Mm-hmm. And just, that you knocked out from,
yanked right from underneath.
Yeah, as one of the little angelic type creatures' heads explodes. And it's just, but the thing that got me is you're seeing more of why a particular person must wear the helmet of fate. Sure. It's not just someone who's comfortable with magic. It's got to be the person who can take the pain. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hurt and hate in the world that if you're not strong enough to deal with this, if you don't have, whether it's your past history, whether it's your personal character strength, that you can't handle the power that's been pumping through you. And so that really shows in her. Yes, she's gifted. Yes, she's intelligent. Yes, she knows about the magic world, but she doesn't have those life experiences which would allow her to protect her against the helm. And we see a complete destruction of who she is. And it's not just, your simple torture. It's not just, beating, and various cruel type stuff. No, it's that whole showing just the dark side of humanity that's out there that would just, any normal person, it would cripple them.
Well, it's how we live with blinders on. It's basically what the gist of what Yimp was portraying with her. She feels safe in her tower of a magic store, but he shows her that the world is filled with pain and has her experience it along with them. She's got to now feel everybody's pain. It's overwhelming to her. He teaches her that the universe is more about death than life. He said that there must be death for life because life eats other life and evil may just be the nutrition. And it's this real, bizarre, psychological, twisted argument, breaking down her perceptions of right and wrong and of safety, which I really, really dug how this was being presented. It's a creepy psychological battle because it breaks her confidence completely to the point that she's left alone and is utterly terrified by being alone to the point that she almost wants him there as a security blanket, which is creepy because he's only hurting her. He leaves her to suffer trapped until Nigel calls on her. As Nigel stands over the wrapped-up Kent Nelson, Maddie with the helmet on, Inza's scrubbing Bubbles' body. I have to wonder if Inza's really out of the picture at this point. Why?
See, I don't think she is. I think Kent can bring her back.
Yeah, what will cause Kent to step up at this point? And I want to see the ending of this so bad. I applaud DC for bringing multiple writers in to interpret the ending of this, which is going to be what issue 8 is. It's my hope that we'll see a series spin out of this at some point because the concept's great and deserves to continue on beyond this mini because I really liked the foundations of this.
And one thing I also really like that it has to be mentioned that Nigel, when they're presented with all this stuff, he could simply just kill them off and be done with it. But it's not just that. He's got to destroy the mantle. He's got to destroy Dr. Fate and make sure nobody else wears it. It's not just about killing off some guy or killing off the girl. It's about a complete and total destruction of this force.
It's about a submission of will.
Yeah.
The only way to submit that will, and this is what, being a demon and being this kind of power is all about. It's really about breaking down everything that somebody holds dear and everything that people could believe in it's like a crushing of hope.
Yeah, you have to destroy the hope to destroy the body. And I love that thing about it, just that whole, there's more to this than just simply killing them off. You got to break them first. And that's where I think we're going to see, I'm hoping we're going to see Dr. Fate step up. We're going to see Ken step up and say, you want it? Let's dance. And put on the helmet and, throw down or do so. I don't know what, but we're going to get a final fight scene. I'm hoping, in this the last coming issue.
I hope we see this characterization lived on, though, because what better tribute to an author than to have his creation live on? And I think he really crafted something very cool here. I heard some forum comments that I've seen throughout various forums was that it started off slow. I kind of get where people come from that, but I will say that everything that was being done in the beginning was more to give you a full picture of who Kent is, and it makes the payoff at this point, the pickup at this point, the reasoning why he keeps giving up the helmet, but also the hardening that you're talking about. If you don't know what he's been through and what his life was like, it doesn't make sense why he is the choice to be Dr. Fate. You've got to see that in order to see why you need somebody who's been through those tough situations that can handle being beat up on this type of level, and yet still somehow be around.
It's a weird analogy, but it's kind of like the Navy SEALs. Mm-hmm. Navy SEALs go through just this absolute pure hell of training where they physically just they take like the best of the best who apply for this, but out of like the thousands of people apply, only like 3 or something like that become like SEALs because you physically beat them down. You mentally exhaust them. You take them to the point where the human body should quit. And if they continue, if they fight on, then they become a SEAL. It's the same thing with the Dr. Fate. You break down the human psyche to absolute garbage, gutter, slime rolling through the gutter. If he's able to pull himself up, then he is Dr. Fate. And I like just that feeling of a giant trial to get his power, to become who he is. And we're going to see if there is a hero there. If there's not, Dr. Fate's done and gone forever. But if he's able to rise up, it's empty. If he's able to rise up, we will see the Doctor.
You're trashing my house. It's funny. This is being collected in trade if you want to just get the Dr. Fate story. For those of you that are just kind of like, wow, I missed this one. I'd really like to see what he did with Dr. Fate. The Countdown to Mystery is being solicited this month, so this is a good time to go out and pick up that trade. They do have it right now in DCB service at a discount, so it's one that you want to grab if you haven't picked it up and get a discount. I will say that I do also recommend, though, for people that are interested in the Eclipso story to seek out the individual issues to pick up that Eclipso story. And I want to chat quickly about the Eclipso backup because I think it's an important story, and this is my own speculation with regards to Mary Marble. So the writer on that is Matthew Sturgis. The penciler is Chad Hardin. The inkers are Dan Green, Walden Wong, and Wayne Faucher. The colorist is Dan Brown. Letterer is Pat Brousseau. The assistant editor, of course, is Stephanie Buscema, and the editor is Joey Cavallari. This book had a very cool Dr. Fate Eclipso cover interwelled into the helmet by Mario Albert that I just want to give a shout out to because that cover was very cool.
Yes, definitely.
That Dr. Fate helmet is a very cool helmet, and you can do some interesting things with it. Now, this story is important because, in my eyes, it fleshes out some of Eclipso and Countdown. It explains the way that Darkseid harnessed the power and how it has been used to influence people both directly from Eclipso and indirectly, and how that power carries on even when Eclipso's not directly involved, which was important here because it has to do a lot with what Darkseid did to control that power and harness it. So it reestablishes also Eclipso with Bruce Gordon as the host, which is part of this storyline as well. The Spectre is helping Bruce to gain some control over Eclipso, and it has a similar issue that Crispus is facing, accepting the role and the responsibility. This backup arc started off first with Jean Loring being Eclipso, and then it veered into, okay, we saw what happened to Jean Loring as Eclipso in the Mary Marvel arc, so now who is the host? So it does continue beyond the storytelling in Countdown, and it gives me some hope for Mary, and we'll talk a little bit why. In both cases, the road is filled with a ton of hardship. The Spectre is going to teach Bruce how to control the Eclipso power so that it can be used for a better purpose. And here's where I have that hope for Mary Marvel. Huntress, Dove, Plastic Man, Creeper are all being controlled by the Eclipso power. This is true even when Bruce is out of things, Basically, I think there is an important distinction because once the influence takes hold, you do not need Eclipso to focus on you in order to still be under its power. Dove, who is a traditional good guy of the DC Universe, the white, she's out of Hawk and Dove, she's the voice of reason, is wanting to willingly kill under the Eclipso power. This shows that the power digs deep inside and manipulates. It gives me some hope for Mary, and I still feel we're going to learn that she was never really out of Eclipso's grasp. Not Eclipso's grasp, the power's grasp. And similar to what we see with Dove and Huntress, an outside force such as the Spectre will have to take that influence away. I don't know that we're going to see that in Final Crisis with Mary, but I'm thinking that there is some of that still going on from scenes with her in Countdown, with Darkseid in the apartment, events leading up to that. I don't know, and I'm speculating here, so please don't take this as me saying this is gospel or anything, but it is kind of one of those where I'm like, this backup is one that I think people should read if you want to see a little bit of the foundations of Eclipso's backup. You have something you want to say?
And it's weird, because I'm not gonna argue with you and say, no, you're 100% wrong, because it could very easily be that, but here's the thing I took out of this, which is kind of interesting. I saw all these different heroes, even Plastic Man under the influence, Creeper under the influence, all these good guys under doing horrific stuff, doing bad stuff. Dove mentioned trying to kill, but in every circumstance, they had half a blue face. They still had the branding on them of Eclipso. And once the Eclipso was taken off, you see quick whitewash away. They're back to their normal face. Everything's good to go, and they're like, "Whoa! I can't believe I did that." And they're back to their own, mindset, their own thought. Oh my God, I can't believe. Now with Mary, we don't see the half the face. We see the costume.
We see it in the symbol on the costume.
Yeah, I know, and I'm about to get that. We do see that symbol, but it's also though I don't see.
Take a look at the white Mary costume.
Right.
Take a look at the color scheme of the white Mary costume and the Thunderbolt on the front. Take a look at Eclipso's color scheme. Just go back and reread Countdown and take a look at the color scheme on white Mary's costume. And I'll leave it at that. I'm not saying I'm right. This is speculation, like anything. I don't know. This isn't something where I got inside. I could be totally off base, things like that. I still have hope for Mary. I don't know when we're going to see any of that. I'm not saying that's something that's going to appear in Final Crisis. Mary's story is far from done.
Oh, definitely far from done.
From what I've read, and I don't know how true this is, the original intention was for Mary to be redeemed within Countdown, but then there was a use for her in Final Crisis as Black Mary, so that was changed. But I think at some point we're going to see the redemption of Mary, and we're going to find out that all along it was Eclipso's power, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't. And it's funny you mentioned that. I'm like, yeah, I could. Okay, and it's as I said, I'm not 100% backing that Mary is free of the influence, but I'm of the school where if they come across and say she's 100% backing and she kind of turned, fine. If they say no, she was always under the Eclipso, I'd be like, okay, fine. I can understand either one. I'm leaning more towards that she got the taste of the power and it turned her. And she is of her own free mind, and she is choosing to do evil. And I'm still gonna stick with that's my upper percentage. I'm thinking that, but it's not 100%. It's maybe only 70. Maybe it's dropped down to 60 after this little conversation. After we're done talking about thing, maybe it's a 60-40 mix. I'm not sure, but I am still right now leaning more towards.
I look at characters like Dawn Granger, Dove, where you see her. She got a taste of. Totally unleashing, being willing to kill criminals, to end things that way. And the second she snapped back, I'm totally convinced that once she's free of that influence, she's going to go back to being the Dove that we all know and love, because that's her basic essence of who she is. I'm thinking what we're seeing with Mary right now is we aren't seeing Mary. we are seeing what the Eclipso power has done to manipulate and tarnish Mary. And I'm talking about the power. I'm not talking about Eclipso. I'm talking about the Eclipso power and the way that Eclipso's power was changed and controlled by Darkseid. There's a Darkseid component to this whole thing here that cannot be ignored, and that was something that was also addressed in this miniseries. So I don't think Darkseid's death, who's in Eclipso, whatever Eclipso's doing to pull strings right now, has necessarily anything to do with why Mary is still being the way that she is. I'm saying we're seeing an aftermath of the fact that she's still under that influence, very similar to what I was saying. These heroes, we saw the same thing with these heroes. And I'm curious, because like Plastic Man was turned by Jean Loring. But we saw when the power separated from her, Plastic Man still remained under that control.
Right. So yeah, there's still the tainting of it. So yeah, I can.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm glad this is a series where I'm just saying it opens up that possibility.
Yeah.
I'm speculating, and I'll even agree with you 100%. Like where you're saying, well, there's another possibility here. I agree with you. That's why I keep using the word speculating. I'm on the fence there too, but I got some hope for Mary still, and that's. Hope's always a good thing.
There's definitely hope that we will see Mary back, and we'll see her, rid herself of the Eclipso in, essence, and maybe actually it's weird because I think she could rid herself of the Eclipso essence, but still hold on to that part of the power that Black Adam gave her, so she'll still have that power. Because I do like her with the black outfit with the gold lightning bolt. I think that looks cooler than the white and the gold, but that's just my personal take on it.
At this point. Ideally, what we would need to see is similar to what we've seen with people with Parallax, where I would love to see Mary defeat it. I would love to see that strength of good, that strength of character, where she defeats it. And I don't know that we're going to, and I could be totally dead. They might be just saying, hey, Black Mary rocks, we're going to keep her. So I might be way off at this point. I don't know, but I've still got some hope there, and there's still some opportunities for that. Bruce and his ex-wife Mona are a very tragic story. He clearly still loves her, and she loves him. I got that kind of vibe from the whole thing. But how much of this trauma can a relationship take? Eclipso also wants her because of the connection to Bruce Gordon, And she went through this once with him. He was freed from it. They went their own separate ways. Now they're being drawn back together again by this Eclipso thing, and, things seem to be going well for Bruce. Due to Darkseid constructing a way to control and harness the power, he's able to manipulate things. So the Darkseid, situations actually offered an opportunity. If he's careful with the use of the power, he can stay in control. All bets are off when they have to face the Order of the Fury. They are bent on bringing Eclipso forward and having Eclipso in full control. The battle begins and they quickly disable the hero's Inspector. Using Mona as a hostage, they force Bruce to change and show that they have constructed a new Heart of Darkness the old one had shattered. Now that Eclipso has bonded with the Heart, he is no longer limited due to Darkseid's manipulations. He takes on a much more menacing form at this point. Creeper switches back to Jack Ryder, and I love that the insanely crazy hero is preferred by Hawk and Dove to the sleaze that is Jack Ryder, the talk show host.
Yeah.
They scramble to free Plastic Man and get a vanishing Crispus out of the area before he is lost forever, because he's not alive. He is, the spirit of Crispus that is still around at this point. The timing is good because once outside the area, Crispus reconnects with the Spectre and the real battle begins. Just when it looks like the Spectre is about to gain the upper hand on Eclipso, William Hansen, who seemed to befriend the hero in this storytelling, was actually planning to bring an army of those who the Spectre served his brand of justice on, which we've seen as a very disturbing brand, without the leash that a host provides. Crispus is surrounded by the cliffhanger that is put into place here.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that's just a wonderful cliffhanger. Because, they show up, they're on the moon fighting. It's going to be Eclipso versus the Spectre. And you're thinking, yeah, this is going to be, the boom, 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 bam, bam, crash through the moon, that type of power blast. And then you're like, no, little surprise for you. Hey, Spectre, you got to deal with this army of people that you tortured and destroyed before. Surprise! I was just like, oh, this is cool. This is going to be a neat thing. What's Spectre going to do? Are we going to see the end of Eclipso through this? Are we going to see what's going to Spectre going to happen? How is this going to portray what's going to happen?
I don't think we're going to see the end of Eclipso through this. I think what's going to happen is Eclipso is going to be reestablished through this, and I think we're going to once again see a lead-in to why Crispus needs to accept his role and the weakness of the Spectre because he has not. And this is going to be a great lead-in to that Final Crisis spin-off that's coming out with Philip Tan and Greg Rucka that's going to finally resolve the Spectre.
Yeah.
And that relationship and bring him back in his power. So this is a great lead-in to that whole, like a prequel or precursor to that whole thing. I think that's what we're going to get out of this. I don't know. We'll see with issue 8. Yeah. I'm really excited for issue 8 of this series, though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I want to see what's going on with this. This is, it's a cool, both sides of it. It's a cool story. It
did have a slow build.
Yeah.
And I will tell people, if you dismiss this after the first couple issues, I highly recommend you come back and visit, because it was a nice, it's a mini series, and there was a nice slow build into a big set of happenings that spun out of, and I'm saying this specifically for the Dr. Fate story. It's something, please, if you dismiss this at any point in time, you're going to miss some great Steve Gerber work. And I'm very curious to see how the writers and creative teams who were involved handle finishing off this story. Because I know that there's going to be different endings that are presented for the Dr. Fate story.
Yeah, there's different ideas they had and stuff like that. And
I applaud them for taking a unique approach to it and saying, we've got to wrap this up, but let's try to do it in a unique way that honors Steve Gerber. So I'm curious to see what that looks like, and I'm glad that they're doing something to finish it. They just didn't leave it hanging. I'm going to say that out of both these stories, Dr. Fate, I am hoping and praying that we see this concept appear out of this, because that, to me, a tribute to any creator who's ever, any artist, any creator in an art form, writer, penciler, whatever, throughout history, the best thing that can come out of any work that you've done is that your concept lives beyond you. And I think it's a great concept, it's a cool concept, and I'd like to see some of Steve's work continue. Definitely a creator that I don't get to talk about. I didn't get to talk about his work on the show as much as I would have liked to. He's definitely a creator where I looked through my stack and I'm like, oh my gosh, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't. It was back in an era like Void and Indigo when it came out. I'm talking about that Epic. It was a couple issue Prestige series that came out from Epic. I quite enjoyed it, when I was younger, and it was one of those that it was back in an era what I hadn't gone far enough that I really recognized creators at that point. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this was another Steve Gerber story that I thought was a lot of fun. So he's just an interesting creator, and his Malibu stuff. And that's why I wanted to make sure on this one. I'm like, what issues could I grab? And I had like 4 or 5 different choices. And I said, no, this one's timely. It's a chance to honor a creator who really did something with a concept, Dr. Fate, that I really wanted to see. And you know how much I like these anthologies. I've talked about that. And I want to see more of these. I think they're great stories. And I hope they've done well enough that they're going to keep doing this kind of thing. Because I think it's a unique way to present characters. So, good stuff. And Jim, our last one this episode, which we're going to do next, is going to be Checkmate number 25.
To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Ready to move up.
All right, Jim, this one's all yours.
Alrighty, we're starting off with Checkmate number 25. The Con Ops were done by Greg Rucka with Eric Trotman, Control by Joe Bennett, Intel by Jack Jaden, Signals by Travis Lanham, Color Guard Santiago Arcas, ARCAS, Double Agent Rachel Gluckstein, and Political Officer Joan Hilty, with cover by Coleman ANDRASOF SZKY. And it was funny because those were the actual terms they used for, writer, for colorist, for inker, and all that. I was like, okay, I like the fact that they put the whole, operation type, feel to it when they did this issue. This is, of course, Rucka's last issue with, Checkmate, and
Rucka and Eric Trotman.
Rucka and Eric Trotman's last issue with Checkmate, and I really enjoyed this title. This is one of those ones where, just like Blue Beetle, where I first read one issue, I didn't get completely hooked on it. But after I went through and I read a full issue, a full arc, I was like, okay, I got to keep reading this. So definitely when things change over, when Jones takes over, I'm going to go with a full arc of his writing to see what happens with Checkmate, because
I think that's next week's release too.
I'm pretty sure 26 is next week. Not 100% positive, but I'm like in the 90 percentile. But one of the things about Checkmate that I've really digged is the fact that it's not just about the Royals. that there are the pawns, there are the castleer, there are all these different entities and pieces that make up Checkmate.
And now the rooks.
And now, yes, the rooks, which were a really cool, introduction. Now, prior to this...
Let me say something beforehand, too. You're talking about with Bruce Jones taking over. One of the great things about when a creative team has done what's been done on this title, you've got 25 issues of foundation as far as what Checkmate is as a title, how it fits into the DC universe, and they've laid that foundation out. I think when writers establish something so strong, it's something where if a creative team comes on board and they pay attention to that foundation piece that's in there, there's an opportunity for them to continue it, and they can kind of do their own little spin on it and make it grow. But as long as they stay true to the roots of what made it such a great series, you can continue on. So I'm with you in the sense that I'm looking forward to seeing what that arc looks like. I'm a little worried because of the fact that I've really enjoyed the first 25 issues of this series. And these are hard shoes to fill because it's such a unique title. And I'm definitely going to give it the next arc a shot, though, because I do feel that there's definitely a lot of strong source material for a new writer to pull from here, and hopefully if Bruce Jones gets it and understands what Checkmate's all about, it's something that could continue on and still could have a very strong season. So I'm with you in the sense that I want to give it a shot, and I'm optimistic because of the foundation piece that's been in place, that I think it will be easier for someone hopefully to be able to grab some of this and go.
Yeah, there's a definite solid of what is Checkmate, what they're about, who they are, how they think, and whatnot. So I'm really hoping that this continues on with that same strength.
I wouldn't want to follow this.
I know, God, this is a
brave.
tough one. Dude, I got,
accepting this is very brave.
Yeah, think about this, going, okay, yeah, I got to fill in after who? Oh, yeah, thanks. Because this is top of the game stuff that you're jumping into, and all eyes are on him now, so I don't envy that guy. I'm like, kudos to you for having the cool yawns to say, let's do this. I can do this. I got a lot of mad props to the guy. Now, the issue starts off, prior issues, we're dealing with an ongoing running theme that they're dealing with Cobra, that they're trying to dominate the world, take over the world. And we've seen multiple issues, multiple arcs where they're dealing with the infiltrating their organization, dealing with their master plan. And the last issue had this massive all-out assault that they were doing and planning with suicide bombings and whatnot, just some hardcore stuff where Checkmate actually was pulling in superheroes, DCU elite to help them out with this. Now, the thing that was interesting, and it is Checkmate, is they're giving them all these different sites, all these different things, except one. There was one main site that they wanted to take down, that they wanted to control, and to do that they called in the Rooks. And keeping with your standard Checkmate, standard operating procedure, they have 2 normal people and 2 enhanced individuals as the Rooks. It's not just a team of enhanced people, and I like the fact that they have that duality. They have that check and balance like they always have throughout the system, and it's a one issue where they introduce who these characters are, but within the span of 22 pages, I have a really good clue as to who these who the team is, what they're about, what they can do, and I like that. That it was a quick snapshot picture of who they are, but it wasn't so glazed over that I'm like, okay, what's going on here? With the Rooks, we have on the enhanced side, we have Sebastian Faust, who we've seen before, and I was like, kind of curious. He's got that James Bond kind of suave vibe going to him, but we also know a little bit about him on the magic side that I don't know if you want to say he's completely good, because he's not. He's not completely evil. He's not. He's that kind of that gray area that just fits so well into Checkmate that, who are they? What are they going to do?
Well, it fits into being the Rook, too, because these are people that they are bringing into situations that are dire, to do things that even Checkmate wouldn't normally do. And that's a key there. So each one of them has their little quirks and things where I'd never see any of these guys being regular agents on Checkmate. They're Rooks for a reason. They were even uncomfortable about unleashing them.
Yeah, and that whole, and actually, in a way, they're kind of uncomfortable with their role in it. Later on, you see as they're going on, what's going to happen? What are we doing? Is it a good thing that we're willing to do this type of stuff? And I like that duality kind of nature in them. We also have on the enhanced side, we have a cyborg / robot android. I don't know exactly what he is, if he's an intelligent robot or if he actually has some human components in him. I'm not sure. It's Jake, which stands for Jungle Automated Killer Experimental. It's this robot-type cyborg thing. It looks completely mechanical. There's no blend of human flesh or anything like that. It's definitely a war machine, and you can tell that just by when they start armoring it up and souping it up and get it ready. On our human side...
I like that, though. I don't even want to know what they're hunting with this much gear.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And they seriously hardcore lock and load him with some nasty just firepower, which, for Checkmate to have leery about what they're throwing at this thing is just speaks volumes. The human side, we have Tyson Sykes, Gravedigger. You immediately look at him, hardcore, long-time soldier. This man is a butt kicker. This man is just like, he's that guy you want on your team, and immediately saw him like, yeah, okay, Gravedigger. That's a cool code name. I like this guy, and I immediately just kind of had this, cool vibe with him. Also on the normal human side, we have Cinnamon, and nice little thing. We don't know what her real name is. All we know is she's a cowgirl. She's, comes riding in on the horse. She's got the fiery red hair, the cowboy hat. She's got that, kind of that rebel, heaven make, devil may care kind of attitude. Yeah. But it's, she can take it down. She can throw down.
Right. She's very quirky. She has that bounty hunter kind of thing about her, where you just kind of feel like she has skills to handle most situations with unique weaponry. Mm-hmm. Like you see her coming in with the shotgun and that type of thing. Not something you'd expect for somebody set in this type of world, but it's clear that she can pick up very simple weaponry and make it into something that's effective in big situations.
Yeah, and it's the strength of a non-meta in a meta world, where it's the character, that the personality, the human side of them, that gives them their strength, that makes it so that they can compete with these villains of these creatures of this level. And once
confidence with her skills too.
Yeah, and like when she's showing up, each one arrives and they get picked up by the different Blackhawk team members and whatnot that are picking up. And she goes to the one guy who's jumping on the helicopter. My horse is not here. When I come back, you'll answer to me. And it was just that cool little just nod to that dude saying, I'm going to go over there, kick some butt over there. I'm going to come back. If my horse isn't taken care of, you're answering for it. And the guy's like, this is a agent who actually has some training of his own, but he's even intimidated by her. She's a rook. There's something about her. And, you kind of start getting that vibe immediately of them. Each one has a very distinctive look, but they're all part of the team. As I said before, you got Sebastian with the James Bond vibe, you got Cowgirl, you got the hardcore soldier, and then you got the robot.
And it's kind of funny, we've had a very interesting flow in this episode, because when we talked about things like Vinyl Underground, it's the same thing. They're quirky people that you wouldn't normally imagine being put together, but somehow you just kind of see that they each fit.
Well, now you're understanding why I chose both Checkmate and Vinyl Underground.
That was your little connection between the two, huh?
Yeah.
Was that really why you chose them?
God, no. Come on. But it sounded good, though. For a second there, I had really you believing that, did you?
Yeah, but you noticed I asked the question. I was immediately skeptical.
With good reason, to be honest, it's funny. As you're saying, I'm like, wow, that's true. Cool. Yeah. I didn't know I did that. But
I'm not going to edit that out either.
I know. You shouldn't. But, okay, so the team's getting ready for their mission. And once again, this is just this cool moment. They see them, they have this... It looks like basically a giant gun, and they're injecting something in their neck. And they even kind of question a little bit, is this normal that we're willing to do this? Is it the what we're doing, or is it the application method we're using to do this? These aren't normal situations. These are rooks. They're going into something funky, and it's like, what exactly are they doing? Because after injecting it, they kind of like throw up this purple goop type essence, and all of a sudden you see that they are all psychic, they are all telepathically linked. And I was like, wow, that is cool. You have a heavy ops, a strike force who now doesn't have to say a word. It's all thought, and it's even, if you think about it, when you're thinking, you think faster than you can actually speak, so you're going to get a faster reaction time. You're going to have your team completely linked and rolling on the same page, and I was just like, outstanding. You gotta love Checkmate that they would come up with something like this. Now, one of the cool things is, as they're sitting there, they're getting ready for this massive mission. They're about to go and siege this mega compound, heavily armored, heavily defended. These guys are just sitting around, okay, yeah, let's get ready, rock and roll. It didn't really, faze them that, they're going and doing this.
Did you take that, though, that was because of what they were injected with?
No, I took it that's who they are.
Because as their eyes are glowing there, and we kind of see that, because it's interesting later when they actually explain what they're being injected with, and what it's doing to them, and what the possible side effects are going to be, and what could actually happen to them, what they might have to do because of that. That the robot's there for some very specific purposes. It's interesting as I see that, because they all see, take a look at them. They all kind of seem almost in a daze.
I think that's the initial online kind of like that's the turn on switch.
Right.
But if you go on like a couple more panels, like when they're getting ready to jump in, they don't have the glowy eyes. They're like, let's rock and roll.
I see what you're saying. As far as like when they're beginning the insertion.
Yeah, when they're beginning of the insertion, this is just a mission for them. This is what they do. They're going on there, and I tell you, these have to be some of the coolest fight scenes of not just graphic violence and action, but a really cool use of fire and maneuver, team tactics. You have your sectors of fire. Each team member jumps in you're jumping into not only a hot LZ, you're dealing with a massively controlled situation that you have to immediately have immediate, effective, and severe results, or you will die instantly. And they jump in. Each one has their own little sector of fire. They're like, bam, 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 bam. Neutralize this target. Neutralize. And it's just that, ongoing, just awesome fighting sequences the next couple pages when they first do their initial assault.
In a day and age where we've got a lot of 3D squad-based action shooters that are very popular, this is really cool because it's a comic that has that kind of vibe to it, and this action sequence in particular does. One of the cool things and the nice twist in here, though, is you can throw in metas because it's set in the DC universe. So you've got magic and all that combined in with straight, good armored tactics. It's just a lot of fun, and it's an interesting, weird mix that you don't normally get in some of the other titles. It's what I've always liked about Checkmate. It's a very unique flavor in the DC universe, and this whole action sequence, you're right, the 2-page spread. I'm a big Joe Bennett fan from back in the Hawkman days. Yeah. And it's this artwork is just, woo.
Yeah, it is great. And even not even just the pencils and inks, just the coloring.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Just like that background coloring and just...
the purplish background.
Right,
yeah. You're basically showing that there's a firefight and smoke all over the place. It's great.
There's fire, smoke, death, destruction, pure mayhem. You got the one dude's heads exploding with blood splattering out. I was just like, wow, that's kind of neat.
I like that there's so much mayhem, though, that some of the stuff is in the shadows.
Yeah.
And in the smoke, and you can kind of imagine what you think's happening there, but you're not really sure because you can't see it with all the other carnage surrounding it.
Yeah. Okay, so as we have the Rooks are attacking and they're hitting the thing. We go back to the castle. We go back to the main HQ, and once again, this is Checkmate. So there's a lot of the little dialogue going on. What's going on? Hey, we have radio silence. No, they're telepathically linked. And then we find out what exactly they injected themselves with.
Can I say one thing before we go to what they injected themselves with too? One of the things I like about Checkmate too is it's a worldwide organization. Mm-hmm. Because of the United Nations ties and things like that. So you've got people from all over. And one of the great things about Checkmate is you've got different political philosophies intersecting. And people who are really political enemies almost, and not just almost, definitely political enemies at times, partnered together and having to either put aside those differences or constantly be wary of each other. And that's where it's a very smart read too. It's nice to see the politics of the DC Universe playing out into this. That's one of the great global things about this particular book that I enjoy. So.
Oh, yeah, big time. It's definitely, it's that political intrigue, it's the action, it's the It's a nice mesh of everything. But okay, back to what the injection was. It was extracts from Starro the Conqueror. And I like the fact that they're using this real potentially nasty, alien DNA to enhance their team. But once again, it's Checkmate. They have to have a counter, checks and balances, and that's where the android comes in. That's where the robot comes in. Because he's, one, not affected by Starro's powers, or two, doesn't take the injection. If anything goes wrong, he can, quote-unquote, terminate the link. Now, you gotta love your usage of the term. Well, they're just going to terminate the link. Well, how do you terminate the link? Oh, yeah, you have to kill the other rooks. Right. So his main thing is he's there to do a job, but he's also, if the others lose control, he puts down his teammates.
Again, adding weight to the why they would only use these in extremely dire situations because, what happens if you have to do that?
And once again, as the Rooks continue on with their siege, we have some really cool fight sequences. And I'm always talking about just team usage, team dynamics, team fighting tactics. We're seeing that. We have our big Tin Man, who takes the point. Why? He's a giant armored tank, basically. He's a walking tank, huge Gatling gun. He can take the heavy fire. Plus, he's also drawing the fire. So all the bad guys are shooting at him. It's binging off his armor. It's probably, I don't even know if he feels pain, but he opens up his big guns and just unleashes.
Tin Man cleaned the porch.
Oh, God, yes. And he definitely does some serious, I don't even know, like flying mines or whatever you want to call those things. He unleashes just a fury of death and destruction, and it's really just bringing out the big guns, which I was like, damn, that is
little
cool.
Balls that had a magnetic element to them as well, and they shoot out these spikes, and you just know that like these people were skewered by these things.
And like some of the follow-up scenes you see with all the blood and just its massive death and destruction, it was just like, wow, this is some cool visual stuff. I was like, this is a hard-hitting team. I can see why you send them in.
It's the dark side of covert ops. At this point in time, we've tried everything else. Now it's time to eliminate the problem.
Now, we talk a lot about Checkmate with intrigue and mystery and this and that, and that's why I love this issue. Wasn't just about the action. It wasn't just about the Rooks going in and cleaning house. We do still get more intrigue, and who better to have like the intrigue and the craziness that is Checkmate, but Batman coming in. I really dig the sequencing, especially because it's Sasha dealing with Batman. And they have that long history. They know who each other are. They understand, just the...
Well, it's Sasha dealing with Bruce.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. Because he comes directly to her, and this is about no games, I know what you're doing. And it's interesting, too. It's not just Batman. It's dealing with Batman who runs the Outsiders.
Yeah.
And there's a difference here because, again, both of them have to get their hands dirty in the way that they do it. It's very different, and there's some lines that Sasha has to cross in Checkmate that Bruce won't.
Right.
But definitely there's no lies, no masks between the two.
And that is a cool thing. I'm glad you mentioned it because, when he's like, I know what you're doing. Those targets are not the prime targets. Like, hey, hold on. Those targets were valid targets, but we're going after this one. And it's the future of the organization. It's their super-powered mutant lizard babies. And even Bruce, you can see, he's kind of taken back that they're going after infants. And they're like, hey, we got to take them out. We have to control the situation. And Bruce is like, hey, by control, you mean kill. He's like, as I said, it's under control. And I like that she's standing up to him. She's not backing down to the big bad bat. But she's standing up and saying, hey, this is what we have to do.
Here's the difference, though, and this is the reason why she was very sexy to be with Bruce to begin with. There's that element of her, too, but also the fact that Bruce believes her. And Bruce, and to a certain, when Bruce looks at her, and that he is going to give in to her because he believes her. She's a very strong, very sexy. It's funny, even with the cybernetics and all that stuff. There's a sexy quality to her in her strength of character and strength of who she is. It's funny how she was developed as this bodyguard for Bruce Wayne in his series, and then became taken by the Bat and learned about the duality. And these are the best females to be with Bruce. Strong, sexy, they can carry themselves. And I'm glad that she grew beyond that she somehow became something more, and that we're seeing that in Checkmate with her, because she's become a very viable character. And that's another one where we talk about Bruce Jones's run. I'm hoping that she continues to be this character and this person, and this is, I have a lot of respect for her as a character.
I want to see her continue on as a queen, as she'll have the title, but there's that persona, that power behind it that I hope they continue on with her. I agree with you completely that she is just a great, great character. That is just, it's a strength of a team is the individual members, and she's definitely...
Her interactions with Nightwing,
yeah.
And, the crossover with the Outsiders were just spot on. There's certain moments where you see the Sasha that has a history in the DC universe that I really enjoy as well. Yeah. And she's more than just who she is with Checkmate. I like her relationship currently going on with Mr. Terrific, and it's how they've got to deal with how does that relate to Checkmate and their roles as royals, and it's a fun read.
Okay, and as we continue, we're seeing more once again just the Rook sieging of the attacking on the base, and I can't keep talking about just how wonderful these fight sequences are. It is just this bam, 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 constant action going on. It's an action movie we're watching unfold, but there's little subtle stuff in there that I like. How you got the constant dynamics of the team talking. There's constant communication, and that is a very effective tool if everybody knows where they're going on. But the one thing I started noticing was how there's like the echo of the psychic communication. You have the initial discussion that they're saying in big and bold, and then a little bit later another thing of small. It's like there's not just a clean communication.
Saying any of it, Jim.
No, but they're thinking it.
Even the big balloons, they're not saying anything.
No, I'm not saying they're saying, but communication. It's the psychic readout.
So we're actually seeing what they're hearing as well.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Their head. Okay,
and that's how they're communicating through their heads. So you see it, then you see another little secondary flash of it later, so there's an echo going on in the thing, and it's a nice.
We're saying
this. I
misunderstood you. I'm sorry. We're saying the same thing.
Right. And another thing is you get some cool 1-2 punch combos kind of going on where it's one team member covering another. You have one of the big bads attacking, Gravedigger, and he's basically kind of outgunned. He's got the gun point blank range, fired it into the dude's head, and it's not phasing him. So Sebastian jumps in with a little mojo going. You got the team; they're under fire from one sector. 1 o'clock. Cowgirl Cinnamon jumps in. She's throwing down some cover fire. It's that makes up a team dynamics. Is
not only that,
fire
she shot through, there's points where she's shooting through the wall.
Yeah, well, it looks like she's got a pretty good magnum going on there.
Yeah.
She's got some serious hardware, but
not only that, she's shooting through the wall and hitting her targets.
Yeah, and she's getting headshots too.
Right.
So she's got skills. And it's like, I'm like, damn. Now that's a lady right there. But seriously though, I do like this crossover of magic and the physical, the gunplay, and it's not just.
And we see it in the book too with fire,
right.
With characters like that. There's characters in the DC universe who've traditionally been heroes who are also in there. So you're seeing a mixture of regular superheroes, metas, and things like that thrown into this whole thing.
But it's also like Sebastian has the magic powers, but it's not just a hocus pocus bam energy blast. He turns into another one of those lizard things, and he beats the crud out of that thing physically, using its own strength against it. So I was like, damn, that is cool that it's not just one-sided of magic. There's a whole thought process behind it. There's more to it.
It's still military squad-based assault. It's just the difference is they have powers. That's what I was trying to say with fire and all that. What I'm saying is you put these metas into these situations, but they're books you would normally expect to see where it's a military-style story, not just like your Tom Clancy type of books, things like that. This is what you're getting out of this. But the interesting twist is we're still in the DC universe. So look who's here and look what they can do. Yet we haven't taken away from that squad-based mentality that you would normally have. It's a unique experience because I'm agreeing with you.
Oh yeah.
Just when I was throwing fire in there, I was just explaining that look, you've got heroes, you've got this magic use, you've got this, you've got that, and yet you've still got that same military squad-based storytelling that you normally have, and it is what's really cool about it.
Yeah, and I tell you, I digged when they finally get into the inner sanctuary, and you see just like the strength, especially Faust. He's sitting there telling them how there's blood magic throughout the place, but he can tell that they're dealing with amateurs. Glyphs and signals drawn in blood, a variation on the schematic incantation, a touch of the Order of Stone, some Crowley thrown in. Might as well have had Vincent Price narrating. Blood magic is subtle, and you idiots have all the subtlety of a sledgehammer to the face. Really just kind of little schmarmy little thrown in there, so because he knows true magic, these guys are idiots, and he knows what they're dealing with. And once again, I'm reading through this going, oh man, this is cool. And even like their high priest, magic doctor, whatever voodoo dude you want to call is like, do you really think you can, stand against the circle of our combined might? Not really, but I do not have to defeat you, just distract you. The first rule of magic is misdirection, as the rest of his team just unloads a serious amount of firepower on that dude.
What I like about him and the way he carries himself, a magician, part of their job is to convince you that they can do anything that they say they're going to do. And he needs to carry himself that way, that confidence. You need to believe him at all points in time. If he says he's going to do it, and like you're talking about misdirection, the misdirection works because you believe he's saying he's going to do what he's saying he's going to do, but then it turns out it's something else because you're distracted by what else he was saying. And that's they're masters at getting their attention where they want it to go. So that way, when the other thing comes around, you don't see it coming. And it played out very well. I like the character a great deal.
Yeah. And it's, they get into the inner sanctuary. They're dealing with the lizard babies. And I like this whole sequence of events because they get there, and yeah, these are lizard babies. And, Sebastian's like, hey, the blood magic has stopped flowing, but these are still dangerous creatures. They're creatures of pure hatred and just rage, but they're still babies. Yes, they look like something out of V, but it's...
That's a good comparison, too.
But it is something, but these are babies, and they actually catch themselves pausing.
And the visitors are our friends.
Oh, they are our friends. I like, Robert Englund was one of them. So,
sure.
Come on.
He was good.
Willie was awesome, man. Yeah. He was a dude.
Right.
But, okay, off the tangent.
But DC did publish a V series, though.
They did.
So it's really it's a tangent that's fitting.
Oh, cool. I like that. But the team pauses, but it is, Tyson who brings them back online saying, hey, we got a job to do. Let's get this done. And I feel for them, and I'm thinking, man, that's got to be tough killing little babies. But these are forces of evil who will grow up to destroy the universe, and I'm like, I can kind of understand this. And, I like to think, it's one of those things where I was reading it going, man, I can't believe they're going to do this. And then they flash on to the next scene, like, okay, they're not going to show it. I'm like, cool, I'm glad with that. So the ending of this issue is really a really cool thing. But before we get to the really cool ending, we have some nice inner dealings between Checkmate, Trinity, with the superheroes, and they're just like, okay, mission accomplished, job done. And you even get the nod from Superman and Wonder Woman, hey, good job, glad I was working with you on this one.
Especially because Superman was so anti-Checkmate earlier on. One of the things that I really liked about this segment, too, again, back to the art, the artwork in this was, and colors especially, the shading tones of Batman and things like that, there's artists that get really, and colorists that get a good grasp of how to do him when he's in the shadows. There's some segments here where he is, you can almost, it's hard to see him. He's so much in the shadow.
Oh, yeah.
And he really doesn't look like he's even really there, like it's almost just a cloak. And that, to me, is when he's at his most intimidating looking. No matter what era Batman it is, the whole point is that presentation, that illusion of somehow being a specter, being a... something more, something, is best from the Batman Begins movie. Being more than a man, being an idea. And that type of thing. It was Ra's al Ghul said it in the Batman Begins movie. And I liked that whole concept. And that's what Batman is at his best. Yes, he's a human and all that, but where he does it is the psychological intimidation and the way he carries himself and that type of thing. And that's really well drawn and presented here.
And I tell you, it's like he's a living shadow in a lot of these sequences, and I thought that was really cool. But also, we're talking art. We got to just props on the way Wonder Woman's drawn. Oh. She's only in a couple panels, only one page, really, but she comes across, she has that power, sexy look to her that we always really dig about Wonder Woman, especially the one sequence that shows like her back. It's like a broad, powerful back, but she's got the black flowing hair. She's still Wonder Woman. She's still a woman, but she's got that power to her that I'm like, oh, this is cool. I like this.
And even in that one where Superman's saying, but well done, she looks just as intimidating as he does. Because you see him standing there with a stern expression of confident, not like he's lecturing them or anything like that, just kind of it's definitely a more serious tone to him because it's Checkmate that they're dealing with. And she's presenting that same, like standing up next to him with that same kind of look of authority. Authority is the word I'm looking for there. And that's really, really great. I like how, though, at the end, she's the one who I look forward to working with you all again. There's a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a drop in the tone.
Yeah.
Where my serious presentation's here, my patting you on the back because of what you've done as a co-professional's here. But again, here is the Wonder Woman who's like, let me extend you the branch here. As out of respect, let me drop the guard a little bit and say thank you to you. I'm looking forward to working with you again.
And it's not until we see Batman have another discussion with Sasha in private that we learn that things aren't exactly what we thought before. Batman tells her flat out, I know what you did. And she's like, yes, you do, but you didn't tell the others. And you won't. And he's like, for now, I won't tell them. It's kind of he does trust her. He does know who she is, but he is keeping an eye on her. And the big secret that we learned is they didn't kill off the baby lizards. They took them. And it's basically, how do you take something that was, born and bred to be the destruction of mankind, how do you turn that around? You give them a new life. You give them hope. You give them love. It's the whole, you nurture and raise them to be better creatures, to be better people, whatever you want to refer to them as. So I like the fact that Checkmate is doing that.
I liked the example, though, that Faust was going to strip the soul, take that negativity away that was put in place of them, and give them an opportunity to be something new. Because they're babies and all that. Let's take away that destined to lead, blood magic tainting their souls. Take that away, clear that up. Give them a blank slate and an opportunity to live a life. And it's going to be interesting, especially because...
Now, do you take it that because the final panel is showing the Rooks holding the babies, do you take it like the Rooks are going to be the nannies, the babysitters, or is it just because this was a Rook episode that they show them with them? Or
I think also because they were the ones that recovered them, and Faust had to strip the souls bare.
Okay.
Obviously, he isn't done with them.
Yeah, but it is a really cool scene seeing these hardened soldiers that we just saw decimate, dozens, if not hundreds of people, holding these babies. They got the little grins on their face. Even the robot dude is, even Tin Man is holding up and, kind of coochie cooing some of the babies. It's a cool, just dynamic ending where we saw these really badasses now being more fatherly and motherly, in Cinnamon's way.
I like the way that they ended this because it leaves an opportunity. It opened. First of all, they closed off this storyline. But also, I like that Checkmate isn't going anywhere, and it leaves hope for the series, which, if you're going to hand off the series to a new writer, this is how you do it with class.
Yeah.
You end off the storyline, you leave it open for them to have some opportunity to go somewhere with it, and they did this. They gave something to the fans that have stuck with them for 25 issues and said, hey, look, here, this is how you end a series. It's very cool, but they did leave that door open. And there's going to be a next issue, and that there's more for the series, and I liked that. There's a certain point to doing that, and it shows class. I'm a big fan of book ending.
Yes, and we definitely get that. We get a definite ending, but it's not a finality. It's the beginning of the next one. It's time to start something new. So as I said, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the future. I want to know what's going to happen. I'm going to give it a full arc. I'm going to give this thing a full arc to see what's going on with it. I'm not going to. It's a tough. They are tough shoes to follow. These are big time, huge. How do you follow this? How do you continue on the story? But
But they provided the opportunity and left it, which I thought was cool. One thing I will say, too, for anybody who's never read Checkmate, if you're listening to this, our ranting about this for the first time, and you're like, well, I'm interested now. This reads very well in trade.
Oh, big time.
I would highly recommend seeking out the trades. In-stock trades, I know, has the trades, and they're all at a discount, 35% off. 37% off. I don't remember which.
Somewhere around there.
But
yeah.
I would definitely go to InStockTrades.com and check out some of the trades, and you can actually experience the story from the beginning. It's a great, great series that explores the DC universe in a very different way. And there's definitely been a nice build to them, and you get to know the characters all the way through. There's just been some wonderful journeys for this storyline. So it was cool. I'm glad you chose this for issue 25, because it's been a while since we've had an opportunity to talk about Checkmate with all the event-driven stuff that's been going on at DC. That's why I wanted to, when we were talking about what to do for this week and how we wanted to get a little bit ahead, I said, you know what, I know we've got the Legion episode coming up, but let's do an episode where you and I can record and get a little bit of content, because part of the show with what we do here, we do a lot of note taking on issues, because we go, we tackle them so in depth. We needed an opportunity to get a little ahead, because we're back to weekly, and I wanted to do something like this. So Jim, actually thank you, Jim, because you scrambled too to get this together. And I'm glad we got to do this though, because I want to do more of these kind of episodes, and definitely at least bi-monthly. While we're trying to get through Final Crisis and all that, let's try to get this into our rotation of episode types, because this was fun.
Oh God, yes, yeah. This was a ball. This is one of the reasons why we do this show, so we can sit there and we can talk about comics that we're geeking out about. That we can look at this. This is awesome.
But I like really delving in, and it's one of the themes of our show has been to really delve in and tackle our experience from A to B, and what moments we enjoyed, and how sometimes those are different, and things that we're seeing are different. And I actually enjoy my books more because I get to see some things that maybe you caught that I didn't from your own experiences. And this is what this is about. And hopefully you guys got that out of this episode. But it was fun to pick just kind of 4 titles that we were both enjoying. Go ahead.
And I got one more quick thing. Last episode, I mentioned how there was a Wikipedia entry about the Midge being called, Solomon being called Midge. And I forgot who, it was on Wikipedia, I forgot who did it. And once again, I apologize for that. It was Samuel Kavanaugh, Gnort of Gnoot. Thank you very much for doing that, dude. You rock. It's a neat thing. And if you forgot what I talked about, it was a Wikipedia entry monitors comics. Sam put in a little comment about how Solomon is referred to as Midge by the Raging Bullets podcast, and gave us a nice little comment, a nod towards us, and so thank you again.
And how did we get on that? It was the evil version of you, right?
Yes, because the way it went
Jim
was
Midge backward.
Yeah,
right.
But it's like I wanted to originally call Solomon Rob, because we had Bob, and I'm like, we needed something else. Bob. I'm like, well, I can go Bob backwards because that's just Bob. And then you said, well, we could go Jim backwards, Midge.
Oh, that's right.
And then I'm like, okay.
That's right. You went through your whole rationalization. And I'm like, can we call it Midge?
Yeah.
I remember this now.
Okay. And then from then on, I just started calling him Midge. And it was funny because in my notes, I had Rob written down. So anytime I saw Rob, I had to change it in my head quickly to Midge.
Right. That's
so, yeah.
funny. It was, and that's another example of how listeners are doing something for us, just, posting on places that we wouldn't normally post just about the show. And I appreciate that. That is something where, it gets 1 or 2 people here or there that'll check out our show. Some of them will stick, some of them won't. And that's okay, because our show's clearly not for everybody. But those are just nice, tiny little details. And then from us, maybe they launch onto a different podcast because they find something that's more to their liking and tastes. And we get a lot of cross traffic from other shows, and hopefully we do the same thing for other shows where we give them hits and listens that maybe they wouldn't have gotten before. So thank you for that.
Hello, Sean and Jim.
Jim, I was going to put this on next week's episode, but we have some room on this one, I think, to just quickly put this on. You had your first interview at the New York Comic Con. And when I say it's your first interview, it's kind of funny when you and I do interviews on this show. We switch off the lead every so often now, especially with Countdown and things like that. But you've been very leery to do that when we've had interviews, because I've offered you that. I've said, hey, do you want to do this one? Because I've done the past few interviews. You're like, no, dude, you can go ahead and do that and take care of it. So we had in New York, because of the fact that we were trading off going to panels and things like that. You had been approached by Upper Deck because of the fact that DC publishes the World of Warcraft comic book, and that Upper Deck in the past has done the DC versus gaming system. They said that they'd like to do something with us real quickly about the World of Warcraft card game.
And miniatures. The card game and miniatures we talked to them about. And it was a really cool experience, because when we were first going into it, I'm like, okay, what do I do? And then I'm like, got in the groove going. I had fun with it. So
And so I wanted to make sure to spotlight that and put that on as its own segment of the show because I haven't heard it yet, and I'll hear it when I go through and edit this so I can actually hear through and hear what you did. But thanks for doing that, and I think it's going to be kind of fun for our listeners just to kind of hear what you did with that. This is Upper Deck and Jim talking about World of Warcraft.
Okay, we are now with the good folks from Upper Deck. As you all know, with the Wildstorm comics going on with the World of Warcraft, they are dealing with the miniature games and the card sets. So it's a nice little crossover tie-in, nice symbiotic relationship with DC titles. So
yeah, hi, I'm Scott Gata. I'm the Director of Marketing at Upper Deck.
Now, looking at these cards, these are some really nice-looking cards. I have played a couple different games. It's a nice system, kind of easy to pick up and play. I guess you guys are having some work with maybe some of the artists helping out with some of the images?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, actually, we use some of the premier fantasy artists in the industry. We've also had, some familiar comic book names like Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane. They've done art for the set. As far as the gameplay goes, yeah, it really is. It's a fairly simple game to pick up. It's pretty intuitive. If you've played the World of Warcraft MMO, it's a very similar experience in the sense that you pick your hero. If you want to be a Draenei warrior or an undead mage, you can pick your hero, you build your deck around your hero, and then you sit down across the table from a friend and duke it out and see who comes out on top.
Cool. One of the things with me in card games is I usually will get confused easily. It happens. Good, you laugh, you caught the joke. Yeah. Most people are like, oh boy, we got a weirdo here. Now you have the basic play cards, you have a supplemental power cards and stuff like that to enhance the different play, and that it's like your traditional layered type of card game, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Basically, you have hero cards, you have your typical action cards. Another unique feature of the World of Warcraft trading card game is that there's loot cards that are randomly inserted in packs, and the loot cards actually have scratch-off codes on them that allow you to get in-game cosmetic items. That you redeem it, you go to our website, you get a code, you're given another code, you go into the game, and there's actually Landro is sitting in Booty Bay. You go up to him, you say, hey Landro, I want a Spectral Tiger, and he goes, okay, give me your access code, and then Landro sells you a Spectral Tiger, and it's a unique World of Warcraft MMO item that you can actually only get through the trading card game. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So all different types of cards.
So that's nice. I like the interaction with the MMO. That's a cool thing for all parties, and good reason if you're playing the MMO, maybe you want to start picking up the card game. Maybe you want to get into it. This might be something good for you.
Right. I mean, that's really was our goal when we put together the World of Warcraft trading card game, was to kind of take that MMO experience and extend it and bring it into the real world so people can experience the World of Warcraft universe in a whole different way, but on their kitchen table.
Okay, now let's shift over to these really, really nice looking minis. Now, honestly, very easily see stuff like this on my shelf. It looks very nice, artwork, and it's... Well, here, let me let you talk about it.
Hi, I'm Margo Sullivan, and I'm the Associate Product Manager on WoW Minis. And I know that, obviously, if you're listening, you can't see them, but if you go to wowminis.com, we have a 360-degree viewer, and we will be revealing a new mini each week. And you can see that they are very dynamic sculpts. A lot of the different miniatures that I've seen have only been two-dimensional, and these are very, very three-dimensional and quite dramatic poses, as you can see at least. And they are also one of the premium detailed. If you can look at the attention to detail, really no holds barred when we develop these figures.
Yeah, I have a lot of the hero clicks, which are nice, but sometimes you get the facial features, you're like, that really doesn't look like so-and-so. And I'm looking at this face, and this is just the intrigue, it's the detail in the red eyes and the face and the mouth. It's just a really nice looking swamp thing, swamp monster, whatever it actually is. I'm not a bog elemental, thank you, but it's a very just nice looking thing.
Yes, our paint masters were painted by Mike McVeigh and Studio McVeigh. He's one of the top guys in the miniatures painting industry. And so that's what we based our minis off of. And as you can see, obviously they are beautiful. They have great attention to detail. You mentioned HeroClix. Our game will have a base that will track game stats. However, we have a unique feature where you can take the miniature off of the base and put it on your shelf, and it'll have a flat black base, so that you don't have to always look at game statistics or numbers when you're just displaying it on a shelf, or if you have it on top of your monitor to, kind of egg you on as you're in the MMO.
Yeah, that's a nice little quality. Plus, like, I could honestly see something, one of these things like at my work, at my computer at work, just sitting on the office desk, or it is really just a nice, beautiful little statue that it's on its own, even if you don't play the game. Now, you're, like with the gameplay, how does just a basic overview of that?
One of the most unique features of our miniatures game is that if you're in the MMO, you can play Horde or Alliance. And in the miniatures game, you will be able to play the monster faction itself. So if you want to play a Bog Elemental, you can play a Bog Elemental. Or you can play a Voidwalker, which is one of my personal favorites. One of these guys will be on my monitor at work, I can assure you. It's a way that it extends the experience not only into the three-dimensional world, but also into the monsters of the world itself.
Now, are there like supplemental stuff, like with the scenery or the battle, like a battle grid, or like I know like with some of the HeroClix stuff, there'll be a mock-up of the danger room or a mock-up of like a city landscape just to add to it. Are that those type of elements with this game?
Yes, in our deluxe edition, we will have 3 different game boards. One will be based on Ashenvale, another one will be based on Tanaris, and another one will be based on Winterspring. And we really tried to bring out some different scenarios. Our deluxe edition will also feature a scenario book.
Thank you very much. This is some really nice stuff, and I don't know, I can honestly see myself picking up some of these things. Is there a website that we can go to?
Yes, if you head over to wowminis.com, closer to launch, we will have a store locator that will tell you how to get these figures. And then until then, we will have different articles coming up. As I mentioned before, we will have a mini of the week featured. And then later on, we will talk about some gameplay.
Thank you. Now, with the card game, any specific place you want to direct them to?
Yeah, basically it's wowtcg.com. If you're interested in learning how to play, there's actually an online demo. You can go to the site. It'll walk you through the basic elements of gameplay. There's also a store locator, event locator. You can find the Traveling Dark Moon Fair. We actually have a real-life version that travels around North America and Europe. So you can find a local place to play. And then there's a message board. If you need help, you're looking for a local community, hit up the message boards and find some players in your area.
Well, thank you very much for stopping by. This was really neat. Some nice stuff to look at, and a little bit of information here. I'm really glad. Thank you very much.
Anytime. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I was sorting out through our emails on the Gmail account, and I totally missed this one. I want to apologize to Eric Green, captain of the forum. Eric sent in an audio comment for our 2-year anniversary show, so I wanted to make sure to get this on there. So thank you very much, Eric, for sending in that audio comment, and here it is.
Hello there, Raging Bulleteers. Hey, Sean. Hey, Jim. This is Eric, Green Capped on the forums, and I just wanted to call and congratulate you on your 2-year anniversary of recording Raging Bullets. I just recently got into podcasting, or I should say listening to podcasting, and yours was the first comic-related podcast that I listened to, and it actually kind of set my mark for what I do and don't listen to from here on out. Really, it's the first one that I come to. I've mentioned on the forums that it's my Thursday night, late work night listen to, so it really makes the nights fly by. I appreciate all the depth and work that you put into the recordings, and I know it's a labor of love, so I hope that, well, the next 2 years are just as good as the first 2. I've gone back and listened to quite a few of the old episodes, so kind of cherry picking it from here, but, it's been fun. Keep it up. Good stuff, guys. Thanks a lot, and I hope you're enjoying the New York Con.
Actually, thank you so much, Eric, for taking the time to record that, and we really appreciate it. Love those well wishes. And yeah, we loved New York, and actually it's a great time. Actually, it's a great segue to announce that Jim and I are both going to be at Wizard World Chicago. So if you are going to be at Wizard World Chicago, shoot us an email, let us know. We'd love to meet up with you at the con, go to some panels and things like that with you. Jim and I are not exhibiting. We're just going there as fans, and we're just going to go enjoy ourselves at the con. So love to hook up with you and hang out. Our next few episodes, Jim and I have been getting together and recording content, preparing content for the next few episodes, trying to get ourselves a little bit ahead. So thank you for your patience. I know we've kind of juggled things around a little bit, and it's really for the purpose of getting us back in the groove for weekly, because we've been doing weekly episodes for the past month or so now, and we've been really scrambling to stay weekly in those, and now we're at a nice part. We've got some breathing room.
Yeah.
Our next episode, we have Kendra Ben Smith joining us. We're going to be talking about the Emerald City Comic Con. We have a nice discussion about the DC Nation panel there, and just really our own thoughts and views in general on DC news. It's not so much a regurgitation of the panel as much as talking about parts that we're enjoying and what we think series that have been announced are going to be like, and it was a lot of fun to discuss that. We also talk about the Johnny DC line from a parent's perspective, because she talks about what she's liking so much about Johnny DC kind of being reinvigorated and what those titles mean to her and what she hopes for in the future with that, and we have a nice little discussion about that as well. Jim, we also, because we want to have comic book content on that episode, we're going to talk about the Action Comics Annual, which
definitely needs to be talked about, and
yeah.
I think it's a good time to do it because it just came out recently. So yeah,
lots of controversy around that over just the sheer amount of delay. But we're going to talk about the story, the art, overall what we felt now that it's finally been released. Is it something that we felt delivered after all this time? And we can talk about that, which is going to be great. And then we have some other listener stuff from New York Comic Con, things like that. We're going to put on that episode as well, and just kind of wrap all of our convention experiences up. After that, the episode afterwards is going to be our Legion of the Superheroes special. We also have a segment coming up over, it might be on that episode, it might be on the next one, on the Smallville season finale. Art Lyon is going to be joining us. We're going to be recording that over the next week. It's nice because we're getting a lot of these things in that we've been promising for some time, because Countdown's finished, so we're going to try to sneak some of these things in right now that we don't have a weekly series that we're working on the show. So we'll go ahead and do that. We have coming up a Starman Wicked Inclination segment that's going to be coming up on the show as well. That's going to be over the next few with Joseph Luciano. Yep. That's going to be, here's our third contest winner. That's from our previous contest from ages ago. And actually, I want to get the contest winners taken care of from that, because I have some new ideas for contests. They're going to be a little more frequent on the show that we're going to be announcing after I get done with those segments. So we have some things planned out, and it's going to have to do with our August in-stock trades. We're going to have another listener come on for that one, so we'll talk a little bit more about that prize and how that's going to come about over the next few episodes. We'll flesh that out a little bit more. So I'm excited. Final Crisis #1 is going to be coming up on an upcoming show as well, which basically after that's going to be released, we're going to squeeze that segment into whatever episode is airing at that point in time. So we have a lot of things that we've gotten ahead on, and I want to thank Darth Kramer for agreeing. He actually agreed to move our recording this week till Thursday, so we could check out his Starman podcast. He's over on the Comic Book Noise feed. He has a Starman podcast over there that he is basically going from start to finish and delving into the meat and potatoes of what's so great about that book, which is very timely considering the omnibuses are being released. So if you have not listened to his podcast, you're going to get a great idea as far as why you should pick up those omnibuses. We've got the Wicked Inclination segment coming up with, of course, Joseph Luciano, where we can delve into that some bit. And I actually talked to Matt. I think hopefully we'll do kind of a crossover with him about his Starman podcast down the road as well, to be able to chat about I love Starman, so hopefully we can do something with him on his show as well to chat about Starman, because I love the character Jack Knight. Jack Knight was Hawkman for me before Hawkman came out from James Robinson and kind of James Robinson and Jeff Johns, when there was that whole reinvigoration of Hawkman in the JSA series that Jeff Johns did and James Robinson. That was my character at that point. So I can't wait to geek out on our show about that, and hopefully we'll do something over with Matt Kramer on that as well. So we got a lot of stuff coming over the next few weeks, and hope you enjoyed this. This episode, if you get a chance, either through email or from the forum comments, give us your thoughts on this episode. I know we did this one kind of at the last minute, and some of you guys are like, wait a minute, huh? I thought this was supposed to be the Legion episode. We did this on purpose to get ourselves ahead for the purposes that I mentioned, and thank you very much for your understanding on the shift on this one. We did this just basically to keep us weekly. We needed a buffer. And we have not had a buffer in there. So we got a lot of content coming your way, and we've got a nice buffer in place now where Raging Bullets will definitely continue to be weekly, and we can keep that pace up without killing ourselves, and that's great. But give us your thoughts on this. Did you like the fact that we kind of did this, we each picked a couple issues and just kind of talked about some books we haven't talked about in a while? Did you like this, and is this something you'd like to see more of on Raging Bullets? I'm thinking at least bi-monthly. I'd like to do it monthly. We'll see what that looks like with all the content we've got in, but I'd like your thoughts on it. Did you guys like this? Was this something interesting to you? And that's always a help for us as well in a gauge. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Why don't you tell us who you are and what you're promoting right now?
Hey, I'm Jerry Vanguard, and I'm here to promote my Blood Rain fan film, which has nothing to do with the real movies, but we decided we couldn't do any worse, so we made a fan film about it. It's about 10 minutes long. You guys can find it on bloodrainfanfilm.com.
What led you to do a Blood Rain fan film? What was it? Was it the films? Was it the games? What was it or just a love for the character?
I played both of the games, and I fell in love with the character, and everybody said I kind of look like her. So I actually cut my hair in the picture just like her, and I actually had the costume made, and I had the guy that makes all the weapons for Johnny Depp and Pirates make the blades for me, and they actually flip forward and flip back, and they're made of metal, and comic book security hates me.
Very cool. So what was the name of that site again where people can check this out?
bloodrainfanfilm.com.
Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
It's cool. Yeah, come on. Let's go ahead and give us your name and where you're from.
My name's Stuart Grant. I'm from England.
And you know what is something right now, comic-wise, that you're reading that's really grabbing you?
All-Star Superman has got to be the best comic out there at the moment.
What is it about that title that's making you say, hey, I've got to read this book?
Just the whole concept of it. It's just, I was reading something to say 60 years of Superman, and then it's just so fresh, so new, and it's everyone's got to read that book.
At the DC panels today, Grant Morrison was saying that Frank Quitely is done with the second last issue and is beginning work on the last issue. Grant Morrison said the last page of that book is probably his favorite last page in all of his written work. The last issue is going to resolve all the issues and questions about Superman and what's going to happen with him. So how excited are you to finish that series?
That's just fantastic. It will be awesome. It will be great.
Is there anything else besides All-Star Superman that's grabbing you right now that you're saying, I'm really digging this at the moment?
I'll tell you, the one comic that I really wasn't sure about, but I bought it, was the New Titans book. The New Titans book's absolutely fantastic. So go and buy that too.
With Judd Winnick's work on that one, you're talking about getting back to the old team again. I really liked how he captured the flavor of that old team and the excitement of like the band getting back together.
Yeah, it was just absolutely, I wasn't really sure about it. And I bought it, it was a number one, I bought it, and it just blew me away. I thought it was great, and the artwork is just outstanding. It's great.
Is this your first US Con?
Yeah. We're only here for like 4 days. This was the timing till I could come here. So it's just fantastic.
How are you liking being at the New York Comic Con?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's big, isn't it?
It's huge this year. We were here last year, and I want to say there's double the amount of people, not only visitors, but guests. Like Artist Alley's filled with people. It seems to be there's a big comic company presence here at a level that was way beyond last year. It's really just great.
One of the best things is just seeing like all the artists and writers. And the thing is, I don't know, like you were saying, you can't sometimes pronounce names, or I don't know what they look like. So I'm walking around looking at the name tags just to see who they are, and thinking, oh my God, look who's that? Gail Simone, Grant Morrison, Jeff Johns. So even spoke to Carmine Infantino, just unbelievable. I was thinking, just wow, So I've had a great time.
Oh, that's awesome. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I want to thank you for listening to the show and supporting us, because without you guys, there'd be no reason for us to do what we do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just real quick, just give us your name and your forum name. And
hey, this is Chef J Dubs from the Forums. Joined my first Comic-Con here in New York. Finally got a chance to get out and meet you guys. Having a great time.
What's something that you're reading right now that you're really enjoying?
Oh, Robin. Love Robin. And Nightwing's getting a lot better, and I'm loving that too.
What is it about Robin that's drawn to you every month?
I've been reading this since 1 year later. Adam Beecham really drew me with the character. Now Chuck Dixon's back on it. I can't wait to see where it goes.
Nightwing, you mentioned that. There's been a change. Peter Tomasi's writing it right now. How has that changed in a way that now it's a book that you want to really grab?
I've been on and off Nightwing for a long time. Bruce Jones, Devin Grayson, now to Tomasi. I'm liking how he's established his own base, in the museum, and he's finally stepped up to make himself, big time.
Yeah. It's really great. I've been really enjoying that as well. I want to thank you for being such a great forum supporter and being on there and sticking with us all this time. It's great to meet you at the con.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys too.
Yeah.